Okay, we're good to go. Welcome everyone to the October 15th State Board of Education meeting. I believe Mr. Sutton, we see you online, and Ms. Newton, see you on Zoom as well. Thank y'all for joining us. And Adrian, I know you will most likely be in and out, but thank you for being here.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear us?
I can't hear you.
Good morning, Mr. Sutton, Ms. Newton, can you hear us?
Now I can.
Great, thank you. Thank y'all for being on Zoom, and I know Ms. Woods might be here for a little bit, but we'll be out. But we appreciate you all joining us and everyone here in this room. Thank you for coming today. We had a full agenda yesterday and have some great reports that we'll be hearing today. I know Secretary Key wanted to make a few remarks to start us off this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we go into the moment of silence, I would just ask for everyone to remember a couple of folks. So we've got a number of members of our team that are on the road this morning going to the memorial service for Carly Saraceni's mom, who passed away within the last few days. And also just y'all remember El Dorado School District and the family of Superintendent Jim Tucker, his wife, passed away yesterday due to complications from COVID. And y'all have seen Mr. Tucker. He's been here a number of times through the years representing his district, and I know that that's just a tough situation for that community. So just wanted y'all to know of that information too, if you hadn't already heard.
We will begin with a moment of silence now. Thank you. Again, thank you all for being here today. We will start out. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Okay. Now we will move down to reports. We are going to start with the Teacher of the Year report, and then we're going to go to our board reports and board discussion. So Ms. Post, you get to start us off this morning.
Thank you. I kind of had a goal the past year to see the high schools in Fort Smith. Having taught at the alternative school, I don't get out to see some of that. So I kicked off the first week since we met last with a trip over to Southside High School. They have a school of innovation called the Star Academy. And it is a really interesting program. Students can work ahead, if they are part of this School of Innovation, on their 4 core classes. And they do have deadlines on their assignments to be submitted. However, they have the ability to work ahead in their math, science, English, and social studies. And they are kind of over in this certain area of the school. And the day that I was there, they were dropping Barbie dolls off of the balcony and connecting that to Algebra 2. All Barbies survived. The couple of days after that, we were at Stagecoach Elementary School in Cabot, Arkansas, seeing our first candidate for Arkansas Teacher of the Year, Miss Jessica Somm, who we have recently announced as the winner. That school was incredible. I wish that each of you could have experienced it that day. As we walked in, there was music playing, there were students greeting, and this wasn't for us. This is what they do every day. There were dog biscuits being handed out to the cars that came through the drop-off line. They have a really, really neat culture. And honestly, it was kind of difficult to set that aside and just look at Jessica by herself. But they really have a great program there. And the next day we went to Don Tyson School of Innovation in Springdale, Arkansas, and saw Miss Allison Dolan. And that was a very interesting campus. They have an incredible robotics program. There was an entire classroom, if you can call it that. It was enormous, for diesel mechanics. So we got quite the tour, and I'll have to admit I was a little bit jealous of their facilities, but it was very interesting to see. I hadn't seen a school on that level in the state yet. The day after that, this is a very interesting thing that Teachers of the Year get to do. The College Football Playoff Foundation has a program called Big Day for Teachers. And every Teacher of the Year gets a $100 gift card for Donors Choose that we get to give away to a teacher of our choosing. So I went back home to Bell Point Alternative Center, and there is a teacher there. Her name is Miss Michelle Johnson. She teaches in the Family and Consumer Science program at Bell Point, and I know that she is all the time purchasing food. Right now, it's materials for kids to make costumes out of her own pocket, and I knew that the $100 would be well spent. So I got the privilege of presenting her with that. The next week, I saw the other big high school in Fort Smith, Northside. Northside has a reputation for being the most diverse high school in all of Arkansas. I don't know if y'all have heard that. But I went and observed an AP statistics class, and this teacher, very masterfully, took in the recent TikTok challenge, which was the devious licks. I don't know if you've heard about that. If not, you need to look it up. But this is, I mean, it's honestly nothing to laugh about. Students were destroying bathrooms and posting it on TikTok for if they had taken soap or entire toilets. I'm not kidding. It was the devious lick challenge. So she took that and she turned it into something positive. She said that a devious licker, as the students referenced this person, had stolen her cookies that she had brought for class that day. So they had handprints. She had all the suspects, which were all teachers and principals at the school. She had them with the spread of their palm up on the board, and they were having to use statistics to figure out who they thought was probably the culprit, the devious licker. And they were so engaged. And I have to say, as a math teacher, it was beautiful to see the diversity. If I'm being quite honest, it was an AP statistics class, and it wasn't full of white children. It was very diverse, and it was so beautiful to see. The 2 days after that, we were at Lake Hamilton High School and then at the Alternative High School in Wynne, Arkansas, seeing Jelena Hurd, who is a library media specialist and was a candidate for Teacher of the Year, and then Miss Vicki Lewis, an alternative educator who was also one of our candidates for Arkansas Teacher of the Year. I've got so much to talk about, I'm going to keep moving. But both of those classrooms were incredible. I told you I wanted to see all the high schools in Fort Smith. So we have a charter school called Future School. And I knew I had a couple of students who had left the alternative high school and gone there. So I checked in on them. And then I was so excited to see that they have an outdoor program. And if you saw their student population, you just wouldn't assume that these kids were into canoeing and fishing and rock climbing. But the teacher in charge of this program opened up his cabinets, and there were rock climbing harnesses. Evidently, they have an entire storage unit full of kayaks and canoes in the back. So I plan to go participate in some of that later this year, but it was just a neat thing to see that kids were being exposed to something that they probably would not have been just from extracurricular time with their family or even with another school. The next week, I spent 3 days with CCSSO's SEAT Collaborative, that's Systems to Elevate Excellent Teaching and/or Teachers. It was mostly district people from other states. There were several states in that collaborative. But it was really interesting to be the teacher voice among all of them. I wish that more Teachers of the Year could be a part of that. And every time I get to do this, I say it's good to be the Arkansas Teacher of the Year. I feel like everyone is so intentional in including me in these sorts of opportunities. But most of that conversation for 3 days centered on recruitment and retention of teachers, diversity among the teachers that we are recruiting, and just elevating the teaching profession. Okay, the last week. So this was really just this week. About 50 of us, I think, is that right, Secretary Key? Were at Pedagene, and we spent a couple of days. There were mental health specialists, behavior specialists, educators, and Department of Education people. And we were talking about mental health for our students and for our educators, and I think it's a very timely conversation. I was actually scrolling through Facebook last night trying to go to sleep, and a local teacher in Fort Smith that I have the utmost respect for, she was actually Teacher of the Year for her school this past year, kind of said, okay, I'm just going to put this out there. And it was a cry for help for teachers who were trying to deal with the mental health concerns of their students this year. She said, we need training, but we just need help. We need people. So I responded to that, and I said, well, let me just tell you that the state is working on this. We've spent a couple of days talking about these issues. And then I also told her that I would be in DC next week and would try to talk to some legislators about her concerns. And then the last thing is just our ATOY announcement that happened this week. Miss Jessica Somm is your 2022 Arkansas Teacher of the Year. I could not be more excited for the voice that she will bring to this seat next year. She is a special education teacher. She is incredible. She is the wife of a military person. I don't know which branch he's in, honestly. I think he's Army, but I could be wrong. And he is overseas right now. So a video was recorded and shown to all of us. And that's part of her platform as well, is military families. And I don't think I realized the disruption to student learning that military service can cause. So she will be able to shed light on some of those issues, obviously on special education. And then she also has a heart, as an elementary teacher, she has a big heart for pre-K education and trying to get ahead of the inequities that we see beginning as early as kindergarten. So you are going to love her. And we will be up here, not next week because I'll be in DC, but I think the following Monday, working on her National Teacher of the Year application. And I think we've got a real shot. So that's what I've been up to. Pretty lengthy, but it's been exciting.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. It's always so important for us to hear about what's going on in the state. So we appreciate your voice and sharing. Questions? Questions? Any questions online? Ms. Newton, Mr. Sutton?
I just wanted to say thank you, Susanna, for all the work that you're doing. I know you're busy and it's time away from your home and family, but it's very much appreciated, the hard work that you're doing. And I agree with you about Ms. Somm. She is outstanding, and I can't wait to see what she's going to do. Just the different voices and viewpoints that she's going to bring. And I'm kind of like you. I think that she's got a real shot at National Teacher of the Year. She is that great.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. Well, thank you again. And we will move on to board reports. If we want to start down here, Dr. Rankin, was there anything that you'd like to report this month? Okay. Down this way. Ms. Newton or Mr. Sutton?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
I wanted to see, Dr. Hill, you brought up some really important remarks yesterday. If this would be an appropriate time for us to discuss a little bit more around the important conversation that you started yesterday, or say that to the end of the meeting. What are we feeling right now? Yeah, we'll keep going now. I know we, again, I certainly, on my whole drive home yesterday, thought about the things you were saying. And so wanted to open the floor for you to follow up and anyone else to have more discussion.
Well, first of all, I don't have the answers. I just bring it up. I was kind of like in a laboratory. I just hearing from our Teacher of the Year talk about I visit alternative schools as potential ways to keep kids in school. and the specialization to work with an underprivileged, at-risk population of kids. And I'm just sharing based on my experiences in many times, and you know, your experiences shape your perceptions shape your reality, and that becomes your norm. So I think just as a coach, you know, you have the SEC, you have Group of Five, you have Power Five, and I think when we're trying to educate everybody in the classroom, although that's the right thing to do it to the very best we can and force everybody in there, but what level you're teaching to and who's suffering, because at what point, I mean, TV teaches at an 8th grade reading level, okay, because it's communicating most effectively to an 8th grade reading level. It doesn't teach to Harvard, it teaches to 8th grade. And so I think we have to look at exactly when we're trying to put people, I mean, we know we have AP classes, but I'm talking about, and I'm gonna share this, because this is real. So when I was talking about the doctor, he evaluated eyes based on reading. And it was so profound because he didn't have a chart when we were doing the physicals of the 6th graders. So he said, "Oh, see if you can read this." And they couldn't read. All right? In the 6th grade, they couldn't read the sentences. So now they're going back to a normal class. They're called out of class to do that. And so we're putting them in that situation, and those kids need intensive therapy. They don't need the normal process. And how do we get them that? It's what I'm discussing. How do we keep them, you know, strictly from a coaching, from an athletic standpoint? I know you train to be the best athlete. You don't go and then go home and don't do anything else. I train my son. I know the commitment to training, to get your body, to get the very best, to give the best performances. So what about if you're immediate, if you don't even have the basic skill? And my deal is graduation, because at the end of the day, and there are various approaches to it. That's what I'm saying. I hope that we can discuss best practices to that. But right now, I'm talking about stopping the bleeding, okay? When you have a heart attack, you don't go, when you rush into the hospital, you don't say, well, what caused this heart attack? You treat that instantaneously to try to keep them alive. If you have an aneurysm, you don't go back and talk about your high blood pressure. You clip, you treat. What I'm saying right now, we're losing kids each and every day. What can we do to stop the bleeding? And then infrastructurally, what we have to be called to here is to create that system that leads towards transformation so we don't have this problem. But this is a major problem, and I'm saying that it's terrible, but the light at the end of the tunnel is not massive. It's not a lot of people, but a lot of people are creating disturbance for the majority of the people. So the classroom, I mean, people don't feel safe. All right? So, you know, and how can you teach in an environment that nobody, you know, it's a disruptive environment. All right? And then if you have people in the class, 6th grade class, that can't read, that's probably one of the reasons that you're disruptive. You want to get put out. So we can't send them home, because that's the reason that violence takes place when we send them back to the house. I mean, you know. So how can we address this from a leadership standpoint? And I know you sit in the Delta, you know, urban education Delta, and in society, if you look at the heat maps of the homicides, it's directly correlated to the dropouts. All right? So how do we address that specifically? Because as I think we said, okay, when we did the presentation here, that we had 89% graduation rate in Arkansas. I think that's what, 88 to 90%. Okay, I think that's what the last presentation we had. So you're talking about 10 to 12%, compound that every year, that's your population. So what I'm saying, we have to specialize because if you're 88, 89, that's good, that's a B plus. marginal A minus. But if you're the parents of that 10%, you're not happy with that. So I think, how can we set the leadership component to become elite in meeting that population? And here's what I found: when you elevate the bottom, everybody rises. So those are the infrastructural changes. And when I, maybe it's a specialization. That's what I was talking about for after school, to help people get brought up in their reading, because oftentimes, like, I was sharing with Sharice and what she does, so with family, it's hard for parents who can't read to teach their kids to read, and you see it self-perpetuate itself. So I don't have all the answers. I just know that I can't be here and not discuss this, because, as I said, silence is violence. And when I see the fact of the effective outcome, because I know, as Sharice noted, the parenting is a critical aspect of it. But you know what I was thinking about? When the last time has there been a parenting class? We get all the training in school for everything. I've never taught home ec. It used to be, I guess, but we all going, 80% of it's going to be parents. But if you don't see those skills, how do you know what those skills are supposed to be? Maybe that's the curriculum. I don't know. I'm just, but we can't do nothing. That's what I'm saying. And these things need to be create awareness, because where I'm working is the violence piece. And I'll tell you why. It speaks to my heart. It speaks to my heart because homicide is the #1 cause of death for African American males aged 1 to 44. And the #2 cause of death for black females aged 1 to 19, which oftentimes the perpetrator is a black male. I have a 2-year-old grandson, a 21-year-old son, and a 27-year-old son-in-law. Statistics tells me if they don't make it to 44, it won't be because they die of heart disease or cancer, it'll be because of gun violence. I don't let my son come home too often because I don't want to be in a violent area. Now, I want to see that changed. Education is a process to change that. I know everything else we're doing is part of that, okay? But as board leaders, this is a conversation that we have to put things in place to, I don't have 2 years on the board. Maybe it's a 20-year plan, because we didn't get here overnight. It's taken 50 years for us to have what I'm saying is moral decay, education demise, environmental detriments, and economic demise in urban communities that left those areas to become decaying. So it's not one size, it's not one thing you can do to fix it. It's a collective of things that need to be done from churches, community, nonprofit organizations. She works with single parenting, all those things. All these things collectively we have to pull together to say, how can we do it? And how can we move the needle 1%? We save one life. We've done that rather than say, because it's overwhelming. I know how I feel. I know how I feel to go into a school and see a parent curse out a principal, which I saw last week. And she didn't know what to do. And that, when I saw that, I became depressed. And I said, God, I guess I'm here to speak about this. So that's what I'm talking about.
There are the challenges that we have. I think if you look at, and I think this is something we learned Monday and Tuesday, there's a lot of work to address some of these issues that are happening. It's not necessarily coordinated. One of the things we've been talking about with mental health, behavioral health issues, there are a lot of organizations, a lot of entities, and even units within this agency that have a hand in that work. And I think one of the things that stood out is just that lack of, one, awareness that these things are out there. Mm-hmm. And two, the lack of coordination. Because there's no awareness, then you don't have the coordination. And so I think part of what the work that Stacy, Dr. Pride, and a number of the leaders on their team, let's get this mapped out and understand what, how do we coordinate these things and build gain some momentum rather than all of them being individual efforts, that it's more of a team collective effort. And I think too the same thing could be said. I mean, I remember being shocked when I found out that Marianna, Lee County, Lee High School didn't have an ag program. Now you think about where they're located. Well, what I found out is they're not the only ones. And decisions have been made similar to the decision back in 2012, Dr. Hill, whenever it was, that the middle school football program, that those programs were eliminated because of cost savings measures. And I think we can all agree that if you look at what it has cost us in real dollars and real terms over the decade, it wasn't cost savings. It was short term. So it's short term decision making that creates situations, and it's different. An ag program in Marianna can be just as effective as a 6th and goal, but it could be many other things, and it's communities. And I've pointed this out to Ms. Smith several times. You go to the football field, Lee County. You look around where you're normally going to see banners for local businesses, posters, signs of support for the students. You don't see that on that field like you would at Arkadelphia. All right. Communities have to get engaged, because the kids need to know that it does mean something when you've got nice, colorful posters out there, or banners, and people in the stands cheering you on. There's a private school just up the road. You drive by their football field. Banners everywhere. Local community businesses. Somebody's reached out to them and say, "Hey, will you advertise and put?" There are symptoms out there of that, and then the symptoms that manifest in the things that you have witnessed, what we've all witnessed in the news reports, happened yesterday again at North Little Rock. So what are those elements that we have available to us?
Because you brought up something to me that I didn't know, that I wasn't even addressing, but I started looking at that population just from a data standpoint. How many homeless students did you say we had in the state of Arkansas? Just on the record, I know, because we thought it was.
I can't remember.
We thought it was
the number,
3,500. You said we're approaching. To what Drew was saying, we're approaching over 10,000.
Yeah, I think that's right. Under the definition that we have of homeless, it's probably closer to 10.
So now think about that from an educational standpoint. If you have that every year, the data says that 70% of all people who commit a violent crime, a shooter, were in foster care. So now, from a standpoint of that, and then we have this homeless population that maybe that's the kids I'm talking about don't want to leave, because like you said, you don't even know they're homeless. But I know the reason that I got involved in the 6th and goal, because I coached football at Little Rock Christian in 5th and 6th grade for my son. And when I went as state board member, and I found that Henderson at the time, Cloverdale and Mapleville didn't have that program. Back to just what you're saying, Lee. So what do? After school. So I mean, these are things I'm saying that we must invest in. As much as we're doing teacher certification and recruiting of qualified teachers, because the social aspect of the development for these kids is to get them to the classroom to teach social behavior skills, social skills, soft skills, in order for that to manifest. I wish that they were able to that we could call and say, do that. But here's what I realized. If we didn't have transportation paid for the 6th and goal, for buses on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, it would never happen. So that's an expense that you have to make a commitment to do. I can't send out an email at this private school like you said, like we used to do, and say, parents, have your kids here, make sure they have all their equipment, go to Sports Academy and pick this up, do that. Don't happen. And I'm saying that's the intentionality that we must provide leadership, because if it wasn't for First Security Bank, Arvest Bank, and those, that wouldn't even be there here. However, it's the best investment that I've seen made for the return of the classroom yet. And the principal for Cloverdale said it last week. Once 6th and Gold started, and I'm not, it could be banned. I don't, like you said, I'm just saying, because I've seen this, that there have been no fights in the school for the last 2 weeks. All right, so now, what does that mean? Learning has improved. The teachers can teach. All right, so those are things I'm saying, and maybe we take that to the alternative school. I mean, I'm an advocate of alternative education or specialization in education to meet a specific need. That's what I'm advocating, to make sure, you know, one size does not fit all, and we don't group everybody in a situation. We don't do athletes like that. I mean, you can't get in certain schools. I mean, you know, how can we, I know it sounds good to say we're inclusive and everybody gets an opportunity, but that's not how you treat illness. That's not how you treat sickness, you know?
So this board is a policy setting board. I mean, it is. I mean, you do that through the establishment of rules, regulations, processes. You have the authority on licensure. I mean, a number of things that you have the authority on that puts it within your realm to have these types of discussions at a statewide level of what are the things that we need. Is it better coordination? Is it recommendation of new legislation? You've seen that. You know, we had the discipline task force 2 years ago, and coming from that, there were recommendations that moved forward. Family community engagement have recommendations, and they move forward. I think that we might be at a stage in which you all have the power to organize yourselves in this way, to establish a new working group or task force of some type that with the intent of looking at what are the challenges that can be fixed through action of this board and this department, in coordination of the various funding streams, the fact that we do have COVID funds right now. This is something that has exacerbated, I believe, across the nation because of COVID and the fallout from that.
Would it be, because I'm always saying how can we move from theory to application, would it be appropriate to even, and I don't think it, when you look at, I know Stacey's drawing the materials from past suspension, discipline, because all those things correlate to what you have, to engage those superintendents in those school districts who have those challenges, because there's no need to bring in somebody who doesn't have the challenges. So now you're involved. I'm talking about these, when she pulls that data and look at these communities with these high suspension expelled rates, because listen, I understand you cannot contaminate the learning environment as such. So I got that. All right. But what I'm saying, what can we do? Because what I've seen, okay, is when you're trying to create an excellent learning environment to make sure the kids are not disruptive, you send the kids home. That's what I see, okay? That's a normal process. We're gonna suspend you, all right? We suspend a kid who's already challenged, then we give them zeros, okay? All right. Then we all right, so then we don't let them make up their work. All right, so they're behind, they've missed the academic, they come back into the classroom, and this is what policy I'm saying, that maybe we do that. They come back into the classroom, they're behind, we test them, then we evaluate the testing of their schools, they're pulled down the testing, but they've been gone because they've got a behavior issue. So I'm saying those are behavior issues are affecting everything, even the grades of the school when you have a high suspension rate, because when you put them in the testing and they test low, it pulls them down. And so I'm just, you know, and then those are the kids that are shooting. That's what I'm saying. That it has made our community more dangerous. Because what? 60% of inmates are high school dropouts. And so like, that was my point. Yes, not only should we use funds to do that, to change the trajectory of education, but we're paying triple to put them in juvenile detention centers when we put them out of school. So, we can pull a CPA and let them run the numbers if that's what we need to do, to say if we reallocate them to another environment rather than sending them to the streets, then which ends up in that situation. Those are the structural things that I'm hoping that we can look at, because as an alternative measure, because for that population, and we're not talking about a lot of people. That's what gives me hope. If we come in here, that's not thousands. And the demographic speaks holistically to the United States of America. 2% of the people cause 50% of homicide. So I'm just baffled why our country can't go help invest in the 2%. We go to Afghanistan to do it. I fought in Desert Storm, willing to come back here in the body bag, and I knew nobody in Kuwait. And I see these mamas around here coming to me crying, helping. What can I do? I know them. But I was willing to die over there. I'm willing to die here now. That's the change that I want to advocate, and we all need to be willing to sacrifice if that's what we're here for. I mean, that's what we said, liberty in the pursuit of happiness. It's hard to be happy when you're unemployed, when you drop out, when you're scared to come outside your house. It's just hard, and I know I applaud your effort. We talk all the time. I'm not beating up anyone. I'm just saying, this awareness, the people perish for a lack of knowledge. I want the knowledge to get out there because we do have some funds. I was telling Stace, let's try something different. We're ambushed. We're in combat. Let's try something and at least, it didn't work. Okay, but right now, like I said, when I saw yesterday, I see, okay, so, all right, the Criminal Justice Institute, let's look at this data and let's go here and say this is what we're going to do, because this is tragic, and I see hopeless people, that need help, and how can we provide that to keep kids in school? Because we can keep them in school and keep them graduated, high school. It changes everything. Just the high school graduation changes everything, and that's what I'm advocating right now. How do we retain kids in the most challenging environment, rather than we're suspending kids, which that's their only avenue to change their lives. That's the only. And so I'm 110% against sending a disadvantaged kid out home. Tell you what happened. I was in school, visiting the superintendent, 6th grade boy, sitting there crying. When I walk in, I look at him. What's wrong with my baby boy? We're suspending him. He's disrupted the class. He can't keep his hands to himself. Oh, okay. So who's coming to get him? Well, we're calling his mother right now. I do this tour of the school, come back, in 30 minutes, he's still sitting there crying. I say, what's up? He said, well, his mother can't come get him because she can't get off work. So you gonna send him home? Those are things, I want to be able to take that young man and put him in another environment, give him a role model and say, hey man, what's up? Come on, let's go get a hamburger. Tell me what's going on. What you need? Why are you doing that? That's what I'm saying. Well, let's take, I think, yes, mainstream education, alternative education. Then we need to drive them to prison and give them a GED. Yeah, okay. I'm good. But we're missing a deal that's a gap. That 2 years ago, we suspended a kid over here in Little Rock. Suspended him, he went and got a gun and shot 2 people. What if he'd had somebody in his life that says, hey, what's wrong? He had nobody at home. That's what I'm saying. The homeless population, they said it's such a detachment. They feel isolated. And so what it says, a child who does not feel the warmth of his village will burn it down. And that's what we got right now.
If I could just say something, or was Quita going to say something? Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. McFakers.
I thought about this last night, and I was thinking, what do we have in place that could begin this process? And I thought, we've already got state-mandated, coordinated school health committees at every school. We all have safety committees at our school. And I know our health committee brought in the community and began to make a list of the different things that they really wanted to work on. And I believe the safety committee also did the same thing, because this is a community issue. It's a school issue, but it is definitely a community issue. Bring people from the communities into these committees and begin to look at what issues they have in their committee, make your priority list of what really needs to be worked on, and get together and really work on this. I can see where the schools could maybe use an anger management class and a stress management class for our children. Desperately need that, I believe. I know our violence in our community is growing, and to say that this isn't happening in every community, Dr. Hill, it is. I mean, it definitely is. Trauma-informed training. I would love our board to get more information on that, but also in our schools. We need to hear more about that. And just more of our schools to be able to offer wraparound services. But anyways, again, it's building those community partnerships. It's bringing everybody together to see that, yes, we do have a homeless problem. What are we going to do about it? Yes, we have more violence in our community, that I believe quite a bit of it's been brought on by the COVID virus. We're seeing this across the nation. But yes, there's got to be answers out there, and it's going to take all of us, all of our communities.
Dr. Hill, I would just wanted to say, it's not just a urban problem. We're seeing same things out in rural areas. The mental health issues that counselors and teachers are dealing with every day. They're going home overwhelmed. I've got a good friend that's a counselor, and she says, I'm not just being a counselor to kids. I'm having to be a counselor to teachers and administrators and principals that are dealing with the different things that you're talking about every day, that, you know, they are feeling overwhelmed, and you know, the issues that they see kids going home to, you know, they are at a loss. Well, what do I do to help this child that has that situation at home? And so, you know, it's you know, I think you said it very well. It's not just one place, it's nationwide, that we are all dealing with the same sort of problems and feeling of helplessness. You know, what do we do? You know, and as a board, you know, I want us to address and do anything that we can to try to help teachers and students that and parents that are dealing with these situations. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of ideas here. I keyed in on something that Secretary Key said, you know, that we have different organizations and people that are trying to help, but we're kind of working in silos. I'm doing one thing and you're doing one thing, but we're not coordinated together. So I wondered if maybe we could set aside some time that maybe I could and you could, or anyone that wanted to come be involved, come and sit down at the department level, and some of the organizations that maybe McFetridge suggested, you know, look at who are the different people that are trying to address this issue, and maybe we can get them together. You know, I don't know if it needs to become a task force or a committee, or just get them together and think about, you know, what can we do to help have an impact on that. You know, we did that with that data where we took all the different organizations in the state that were trying, in community organizations. So it was on one database, you know, and so people could go there and find help when they needed it. You know, maybe we need to do something that where we can start having people talk to one another and trying to work together to leverage help where it's needed. You know, that's an idea that just throw it out, that maybe we could get together maybe one day next week and try to think about what is possible for us as a board, because, you know, I know that there are COVID funds out there that districts have. I know we have some as a state, but, you know, I don't know what the parameters are as far as federally what they can be used for, and so maybe we can get together and have some discussions on that. Just an idea. And Secretary Key, I don't know what you think about that idea.
Ms. Newton, I think it's probably worthy of a work session for the board, that, you know, if we could get that scheduled, because I know Stacy is on a number of groups that are organizing around this type of work. Members of her team are on groups that are organizing around this type of work. And I mean, I think just that that issue of mapping out, you know, what is out there and connecting the dots, you know, I think it's not connected right now. There is no map. There is no clear picture of where people need to go if they have certain things that happen. I mean, it's really a hodgepodge. But we have resources in the state that are, you know, in some cases national experts on these issues. We just haven't tapped into that expertise and that knowledge to get something that is truly scalable, you know, for the state. So that I think your suggestion is a good one. I do think a work session with the board would be something that we could help put together and bring the you know, raise the awareness, but also try to promote this this notion of connection, you know, that is missing with some of this work. So Stacy is here and might want to speak to that. Stacy, I don't know if you have any thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good to hear from her, because we've been in conversation. But I want to make sure, I want to clear something up, because to really hit in on something, because I was not by any means lessening the magnitude of the problems in our entire state, in our entire country. But what I was doing was identifying a crisis situation where 52% of African American males drop out of high school throughout the United States of America. And we as a board, there's no other population with that severe crisis. And so my point is that what I found, again, when I made the analogy to cancer, is that when you're trying to address a specific problem, you have to have a specific solution to address those cultural differences in that population. I wasn't trying to lessen that to any other community by any stretch of the imagination. I just realized that this is not oftentimes voiced out of my community, which I represent. which I'm trying to create awareness for various reasons. And so I'm going to voice it. It's not popular. I was appointed. I'm not running for office. No, don't need approval rating. I'm called to bring this up as a matter to say, how can I keep young black men in school? Which then creates a better situation for everyone. So now I'm certain that everybody will work to the specificity of their communities, and I hope that's the case, because that's why I represent this Little Rock area right here, which I was assigned to. So that's the issue specifically. Like I said, my mother had aneurysm, so she didn't go to a general practitioner. She went to a neurosurgeon to get her aneurysm clipped. So I'm trying to make sure I stay in my lane where my area of expertise is, in order to dealing with these young men who I found oftentimes the quickest way of a solution is suspension or expulsion. And what I'm saying is that as a state, it's costing us more because, and I shared this yesterday with Stacy, and I'm gonna give you this analogy. Drive down 12th Street when you leave here today, okay? When you leave here, go to 12th Street and take the university. Here's what you'll see. You'll see a group of men standing on 12th Street who don't have health insurance, who don't have dental insurance, who can't get mental health counseling, who are unemployed, who may be homeless, standing there because probably didn't finish school because of the data. Do you know where they can get those 5 things that we pay for? Prison. So what I'm saying, why not get creative and come back and do something preventive to say, okay, this population, we do it for everywhere else in the world. But this percentage that I'm speaking for is not getting it for various reasons. And that's what I want us to study and come up with, to say, no, this cancer is going to be addressed with this specific chemotherapy to help matriculate this population. Now, we know everybody has issues in their communities, and you are responsible for advocating and speaking on those. These I brought up had not been spoken about. In fact, nobody talks about them. I'm not going to be a part of that any longer. That's my point. Stacy, please.
So one thing I want to kind of clarify, just because I think there's two conversations going on here, and I think we have 2 crises going on. One is, I do think we have a crisis in our state for mental and behavior, okay, that we're all experiencing, and we saw the crisis on mental health and behavior occurring prior to the pandemic. We were hearing from school administrators and teachers prior to the pandemic that they are having behavior issues in their classrooms and mental health issues in their classrooms that they don't know what to do with. And we have seen expulsion rates and putting kids out. We, as a state, recognize that most schools have only 3 or 4 tools to respond. One, if you're in elementary, you take a kid's recess, okay? Or you call their parent to come get them. Or in some cases, we still have schools who paddle. In high school, you've seen where they just get sent home. They have Saturday school detention, or they're just being sent home. And then you have a population that gets sent to the alternative learning. So in the last year and a half, and I'm going to tell you, COVID diverted us to, these were things that we were planning. We literally had a 2-day, I don't want to call it a retreat because it was 2 days of work, and Ms. Post was involved in that and was part of that conversation. And those 2 days that we had this week were actually planned before the pandemic and got postponed. So we have identified that we need to, 1, revamp the way we function and perform ALEs and what's happening there, and funding and pieces like that, and the rules for that. So that's big conversations that are happening right now. and the board will be involved in that because it has to do with rules, all right? And it has to also do with adequacy and conversations there. A second thing, there was a law passed for schools this last year that said the schools have to provide positive behavioral supports to students. And that is key, but there is a huge misunderstanding of what that is, and the department is responsible for, we need to put something together to provide to schools. They need more tools in their belt beyond suspending a student, paddling a student, or taking their recess. Okay, and so that was part of the 2-day conversation we had this last week on what is it we need to do. And I think that a good work session for the board on our next steps would be critical. And so when everybody is saying we're seeing this statewide, yes, we are. And then I think the third thing, which I think Dr. Hill, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, okay, but I think there is another crisis happening that is specific to specific communities, and it is gangs have increased, shootings have occurred, and it is occurring with our Black youth. I've seen it firsthand in Pine Bluff. It happens in Little Rock, and Dr. Hill has been an integral part in supporting in that. There is a different crisis happening there. Now, some of the same supports that we can use statewide about students being engaged and staff having proactive measures, house sports and band and those extracurricular, some of the same things are going to be statewide efforts for everybody. But there is a different crisis occurring right now in some communities that we've got to continue to talk about. And when I hear you talking, I think that you're really specifically hitting on that. That's the bleeding. While we have broken arms throughout the state in this area, in this topic, which we need to address statewide, we also have a specific area that is in a different level of crisis in a holistic community manner. So I think we have two conversations going on. And also I don't want to blend like this is all the same thing and the same actions we're going to, so while I do think we have a statewide action that we're very much digging into right now, and we'll have a work session and be able to tell you statewide plans, I do think we have a separate group over here where we're saying, okay, now we're also in an emergency situation in certain communities where certain community folks have to get involved, and that's the conversation that I hear you talking about. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to wrap this up because I know we've got lots. We are working with the National Governors Association. We received a small grant on mental and behavioral health, and that is the Department of Education working with other state agencies identifying barriers to providing mental health supports. Okay, so we're working with DHS and some of those other groups. That's one group I'm on. Another group I'm aboard on that just got a huge grant is Uams. They reached out to us and said we've got a grant from Blue and You on creating a center at UAMS for K-12 mental health supports, and we want to know how to help your schools. So that's starting right now. In fact, yesterday I called them and asked them to actually go to Watson Chapel where they had a school shooting last year and talk to the entire faculty about have they had the resources for their teachers and staff that maybe didn't get mental health support last year from a crisis that happened in their building. So that center is taking that on. And then the third group is the group that we started here at the department. And we're actually, we reached out to our comp center, our Region 14 comp center, which is like our own state. They work with several different states on state, not issues, but things that we want to accomplish. And they are the ones who actually helped us the last 2 days with our Monday and Tuesday on our bigger strategic plan that we're creating for a state on how to move forward, that I do want to come back and do a work session with you on. But I'm going to wrap it up there. So we have lots of pieces going. I actually have some books in my office I'd love to share with you if you want some of those. I'll send you home with 2 today if you're interested in them. But I look forward to continuing this conversation and sharing more of the work. Yes, sir.
If I may, Madam Chair, I'll tell you what, I'm very impressed with this conversation. I think this conversation is very healthy. The 2 components that you shared, I just want to make sure that there's one component that's factored in that we haven't necessarily talked about. Since 2007, I've been fortunate to work with the Delta. And both of those components and some of the issues that we're having now, they all have one common denominator. That's poverty. When I think about poverty, and I'm sure Steve can contest to this, Northeast Arkansas, when I think about Mississippi County, I think about it's one of the largest counties in Arkansas. We're recognized as being the steel capital of North America. We're also recognized as being #1 in the nation as far as row crop, but also we're recognized as the poorest county in Arkansas. So I just want to make sure that as we objectively factor in all these things, that we certainly look at the poverty in those areas. It needs to be inclusive. Thank you.
I would agree with that. Thank you.
And I just want to, Stephen, appreciate you so much. You said something that as we think, and I just want to put this out there, it's almost like when, you know, you can profile research instantaneously just based on being in an environment. We can all, I bet you, if you go to these schools that we're talking about, you can identify the population of underserved kids who need something special right now. And that's what I'm talking about from a preventive standpoint, because check this out. Just what you said as far as UAMS giving grants for teachers for trauma after the fact. What I'm saying on the front side, if I walk into a school and I see, I'm specific with the population, 120 young African American boys, after an interaction as a group, I can almost identify who my problem is just by how the interaction is. I've been doing it long enough to say, and if that kid is a problem, I go directly to him because he's influencing the whole group in so many cases that I'm saying, if we were able to say, that 15 boys right here are without something, which then that we give them the intensive deal on the front end rather than going with these investments on the back end. These are the type of strategic things that I'm talking about for you to do, that we go in. Because when Derek was murdered on our campus in 2012, September 27th, as I sit there with the investigator, I had a personal experience and I had to call the mama who when that happened. I sit there and looked at the camera that we did the deal. He walked in the community with a long white shirt on, pulled out a 9mm and shot up my students. And I sit there and I said to the investigator, he said, I can't believe somebody would do that. I said, let me profile him for you. Okay. He was a high school dropout. He was fatherless and he was unemployed. You can almost sit there and take the kids and you can see when you've done it to know, all right, they're relationally challenged. Okay. And then how do we connect with them in the classroom? And just like I told Johnny, you know, to you, there's so many other issues that we're dealing with racially right now that some reason, you know, there's two factors here that I want to put on the surface that keep us from having relational conversation. It's called fear and trust. Okay? When there is fear and there's lack of trust, there's no transparency in communication, in anything. That's why I value our relationship, because we have hard conversations, you know, and they're not always comfortable, but you don't grow in comfort. You grow in discomfort. And so that's why we got to push through this level of being uncomfortable. And I know Sharice want to say something, so I'm gonna let her say something.
Well, I definitely feel your heart and your passion, and being born and raised in Little Rock, living in Southwest Little Rock, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've lived it. I've experienced it. I live it daily. I was on the floor twice this week, dodging bullets at my own house. So I understand what we're having to deal with. And that's part of why I've been doing the work that I've been doing with family and community engagement. And just to hit on some things that you said, and to go back to what Commissioner Key said, there are a lot of things going on in the state already. There are a lot of programs. We talk about Graduation Recovery. There is Graduate Arkansas. There's different programs that are already in place to help reclaim those scholars, to keep them from falling between the cracks. We have, what's it called? Reclaiming Scholars that's housed at St. Mark Baptist Church. Started with one school, started with Henderson. And it does exactly what you were saying that we need to do, is not let these children go home to empty houses, because that's the problem. And so with Reclaiming Scholars, with the Tendaji Project, the church opens its doors and students are allowed to go there when they have been suspended. They get their schoolwork. They have coordination with Uams, with mental health services. So there are programs there, but I think the problem, like you said, part of the problem is that there's not awareness. There's not awareness of those programs, and we need to make sure that there is awareness that there are programs that are working, there are things that are out there that can be done. And with the family and community engagement, that's one thing that we worked on, was we brought together a group of about 80 people, and it had the homeless student coordinators, because we realized that's important to, that is an important area that we need to be coordinating with. We also, like, I think Stacy brought that up with it was WIDA. There is a database that the department created that has all of those resources available. The family and community engagement, for one thing, there was not there weren't any people here hired at the department, and thanks to Commissioner Key and others here at the department, there are people here, that's what they do on a daily basis. And so there's a toolkit, there's a website being built to where we're trying to bring all of those people in the community together into one place. So our parent facilitators, parent coordinators can build that relationship and that rapport with parents to find out, what are your needs? If you need, like you said, what's the program that you work with? No, the CityServe, where people can find out what the needs are, and they've got a warehouse that's full of items, to where if there's something mom needs or something the student needs, that there's somebody there to assist them. So there are things in place. However, to Commissioner Key's points, I think that we do need to coordinate funding streams, because there are programs out there, but they're not well funded. They're not built enough. They're small, and so there's so much money out here. There's so much funding out here, and I think that's what we can do as a board, is coordinate that funding to highlight those best practices, highlight those programs that are working in the community, to help to grow them, to bring awareness to them, and to rally more businesses and community members around them. But to your point, there is a huge mental and behavioral health issue that is growing, and I think the COVID-19 crisis and the pandemic made it grow exponentially. So I'm excited to hear what we have planned in the future, and as Family and Community Engagement Task Force, we would love to partner and figure out what we can do to help in coordinating services and things of that sort.
So this week, Deb Kaufman and David, who's also on the Family and Community Engagement Group, they were both at the meeting this week. So what we did from the department, it was literally about 40 of us, and it was from people from all over the agency, and really talking about what is everybody doing, and what do we have to do next, and where are the holes. And so that was part of the conversation, is look at all this work we have going on here, and everybody's working in silos and it's not together.
Right.
And so, I mean, we wrote Guide for Life, our personal competencies. I'm so proud of those, but what have we done with them? We haven't put them in teachers' hands with tools to be able to say, this is a systematic process on how we start teaching this. Principal leadership. Yesterday when you were talking about Brian Miller, it's not about the fact that he's a mentor and he's out there doing it. He's a natural leader that is passionate. And when you have building principals that have that, and you have assistant principals or counselors, and you have meaningful people on campus, that makes a difference. And so how do we harness that and make sure that they have the tools needed to push forward?
Right.
So I agree 100%, and we'll make sure that we loop everybody in. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, as far as that conversation, that's one thing that I think was really good about the family and community engagement. We were able to pull in stakeholders from every part of the community: parents, grandparents, teachers, educators, business leaders, bank owners, and because everybody has a stake in the game. And so all of those people need to be brought to the table so that we can have these meaningful and sometimes difficult conversations that we need to have.
And I think a way to even create the awareness even to an increased state is to talk with the end in mind and then work back. And I say that to say, to get the business community, where Commissioner Key was talking about investing into communities, into schools, the thing that's real active to getting that involvement is to say we want to reduce violence. That's the outcome of what this will do. And I think when people can say, well, and again, Little Rock, okay, 53 homicides this year per capita, probably number 1 or number 2 in the country. All right, so that hurts business in Central Arkansas. So how can we address that to say, you know, how can we this time in 2 years through education saying, hey, if you help us, here are the numbers, they're business people, they're looking at the bottom line. If you can invest and help us with this, with these numbers, if we can decrease violence in Little Rock, you know, 50% in the next 5 years, what will that do by us keeping dropouts in school? So what can you do to help us? Then I think the conversation becomes more engaging than to be talking about a committee to those people. Now, that's what our job is to do, is to have the committees, but their job is to write the check for us to be able to do the things that Stacey's talking about to be able to lead. So that's the type of awareness for conversation that I think we have to go ahead and put it out there, as ugly as it may sound, in order to say, we've identified the problem, okay? This is what we're working to, and what are our goals? What are our metrics? We're talking about data, okay? How can we improve? Anything that can be measured can be improved. So this is where we are. What do we hope to be in the immediate, short term, intermediate, and long term? We got those 4 systems we want to work that I think once we put those up there, we come back, then I think that people know we mean business about what we're doing. And I know the conversation has been going on, but now how can we implement with the action plan that will hold us accountable to saying, this is what we hope to do, and this is the method of game plan that we're going to use to get into the end zone.
Mr. Harrington, so I'm so glad that you brought up the poverty factor, because it's huge. It's a huge, huge factor in this conversation. And I think that's why it'll be important for us to loop in the Chamber of Commerce, CTE. I think, like you said before, our banks need to be involved in this. We have a great partnership at St. Mark with Arvest Banks, and they teach Money Matters. They teach finance competency classes, and that's something they offer for free to the community through St. Mark Baptist Church. But all of those, I think, are factors that need to be, and community members that need to be pulled into this this conversation, because we cannot leave out that huge factor of poverty. And how do we deal with poverty? Because poverty informs a lot of this behavior, the things that we see. So I think that's a huge thing that we need to definitely focus on. I appreciate you bringing that up.
I think as we think about those outcomes and planning that, we think about, and I don't want to step on your toes, Ms. Newton, but do we want to plan a working group? Do we want to plan 2 separate working groups, or one with 2 parts, one to look at the state issues, one to look at specific community issues? What are we thinking?
I think I would hesitate for us to determine a direction today, because I think there's a lot of information that we need to make sure y'all have in your hands.
Right.
I mean, we send out information, but I'm just thinking about, last week we announced 44 organizations receiving $5.2, I believe, million for after-school programming and things like that around the state. So there are other organizations that are also engaged in that work that may be seeking grants later. This is all money coming from American Rescue Plan funds. So what I think I would ask y'all to let us do is to get to really curate some information to get in your hands so you can prepare and then have a work session with the entire group. And Gina and I, Ivy and Stacy could get with Ms. Newton on scheduling that, and then maybe from that work session then determine what the board's path forward might be. How many, if there are a number of groups, or maybe you may identify more than 2 opportunities there. So if you could let us have some time to really put together what we think would be important for y'all to look at as far as current information, data, give us time to finish up getting the data that Dr. Hill has asked Stacy to put together, and then we'll get this scheduled, bring this all back to you, and I think we could put together a strong effort moving forward. Okay.
I think that would be smart, and making sure that we have all the information in our hands, and then that would point us in a direction to go from there.
Okay. We will follow up, Ms. Newton, with you on that upon your return, and when we get everything together, we'll be in this, and we understand the urgency too. Let me just say that. We're not going to wait till November, board meeting before we do this. I know I can't get away from Fitz, but that's, we'll put a level of urgency to make sure that we get everybody back together. And I know scheduling with everyone is a challenge, but I think we can have work sessions in person, Zoom, hybrid, just like we do board meetings, and that will help the scheduling as well.
Thank you. Let's do this. Should we take a 5-minute break, come back at 10:30, and we will regroup for our first report from Arkansas PBS. Thank you all. Okay, one more minute and we'll start back. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started because we have some great reports coming our way. We're going to start with the commissioner's report here first.
Yeah, just briefly, last week Gina and I attended the School for the Deaf homecoming events and got to be in the parade, but at the same time they were also having a career fair, and at the career fair one of the tables was the Arkansas Treasurer's Office, and I provided you information with these two brochures. It's the AR ABLE program, and if you're familiar with the Arkansas 529 program, this is very similar, but this is to help promote savings for Arkansans, not just children, but Arkansans that have disabilities, where there are tax advantage savings programs to help them save for, it could be education expenses, it could be a number of expenses that are promoting or designed to help benefit the lives and improve the lives of these individuals. So you see if there are a number of allowable expenses that are covered under this, and so family members could contribute to these accounts, a number of things, and the director said it's one of the best kept secrets in Arkansas because there's just not a lot of participation in this program, but I think we all know someone who could benefit, know a family who could benefit by this. So I wanted you all to have this. I gave you an extra stack, Ms. Dean, because it may be something that the Family Community Engagement team would be interested in knowing about. And I have other copies of the materials too, if anybody wants to take more with them. But I wanted you to have that, and that's, besides the big reports we have today, that's the only thing I wanted to mention before we move into the next report items.
Great, thank you. Next we have Courtney Pledger, the director of Arkansas PBS. Oh, Stacy Smith first. There we go. Thank you, Stacy.
Opportunity to brag on her for a second. So the Rise and Shine program, it started with a partnership with Arkansas PBS last year when COVID first hit the schools and we shut down. And Courtney reached out and said, what can we do? And so we started brainstorming in-house, and we're like, I wonder if they'd change their whole programming for us. And I wonder if they would, and the answer was yes. They revamped their whole programming in March of 2020 for getting us through the end of school. And, at that point, they were like, we need a narrator. And then it was like, well, let's talk to our Arkansas Teachers of the Year. And I can remember Zooming with the Arkansas Teachers of the Year saying, would you guys be willing to do this? And again, most of those people had jobs. I mean, Courtney was back teaching, Joel was here trying, serving in this role, and Stacy McAdoo was back, and every one of them said, we'll do whatever it takes. Didn't get paid for it, just did it. And it was so successful that with our ESSER funds, we couldn't pass up the opportunity to reach out and say, would you do your magic again? But we'll give you some money this time. And they created the Rise and Shine program this summer. And Ms. Post has been involved in that with, again, our Arkansas Teachers of the Year. But I just appreciate how much Courtney, who is their executive director and CEO, how she has been a friend to education, and she is really passionate about this work and looking for opportunities to partner. And I'm so excited that you guys get to hear from her today about what they achieved and how it has impacted the students in Arkansas. So Courtney Pledger.
Thank you, Stacy. I don't ever have to be asked twice to talk about this magic relationship and partnership between Arkansas Department of Education and Arkansas PBS. I mean, it is truly a groundbreaking partnership. It's a model for potential partnerships between public media stations and departments of education all across the country. I'm here to talk about Rise and Shine, but before I do that, I'd like to mention just a couple of the recent accomplishments of the brilliant ADE Arkansas PBS collaboration, Arkansas Ideas. Arkansas Ideas provides compelling, high-quality professional development and classroom resources for K-12 Arkansas educators. Arkansas Ideas usage has grown exponentially since 2017. Since 2019 alone, Arkansas Ideas has shown a 30.5% growth in users, from 59,000 users to nearly 77,000 for our over 700 courses created by our in-house educators. And we're proud to provide content on such critical subjects as science of reading, anti-bullying strategies, understanding child maltreatment, and trauma-informed practices, just to name a few. In 2019, we started putting our law-based courses through evidence-based research with pre- and post-testing assessments. The results were exactly what we hoped they would be. They indicate that a 38 to 66% gain in knowledge happens with educators after taking our courses that are legislatively required for teachers. So we are so proud of Arkansas Ideas and its growth. Now, turning to Rise and Shine, I'll add a little bit to the backstory that Stacy just gave. When the schools closed and we did Arkansas AMI, we gathered quickly with now Deputy Commissioner Stacy Smith and the DESE staff to talk about the needs of the students at that time. And Arkansas AMI was conceived, planned, produced, and made available over the air and on multiple digital platforms in just 10 days' time, keeping kids learning as well as addressing some social, emotional issues that obviously kids, were struggling with feelings of isolation and fear during that time. And we particularly filled the gap in serving kids without access to broadband, a significant need in our state. And as one great thing often leads to another, the huge demand for Arkansas AMI across the state reached the governor, and it led to a critical question from Governor Hutchinson. Why can't every student in Arkansas get Arkansas AMI? How can we fix that? So we gained, we had already research, so we had research in hand, and we had the answer that we needed additional transmitters in order to be able to be truly statewide. So with unanimous support from the CARES Act Committee, we got the funds to do that, to expand our broadcast footprint with 5 additional transmitters for a total of 11. So the first transmitter went online last April in the Arkansas River Valley area, and then over the next several months, another 3 will go online, and then number 5 will light up in the first quarter of 2022 allowing Arkansas PBS to move from 76% coverage of the state all the way to 99.5%, ensuring equitable access to high-quality educational materials for every single child in Arkansas. So as the pandemic continued, we all knew there would be ways to continue to use this unique partnership and what was needed in the summer of 2021. Well, the need was skill recovery and extended learning through the summer months, as well as resources for teachers that they could use in a variety of different ways once school resumed. Resources that would help combat learning loss due to school disruptions, summer learning sent straight to students' homes that would also help prevent summer slide. So together with DESE, we decided to draw on top educators from across the state, including one of your fellow board members here, numerous community organizations and production professionals to create Rise and Shine. So what exactly went into the creation of Rise and Shine? Once DESE designated the specific learning targets for K through fifth graders, in a matter of weeks, we started planning, writing, hiring crew, constructing the sets, and there were 3.5 weeks of production with over 100 individuals working on the project. Rise and Shine debuted on the air and on multiple digital platforms on July 6th of this past summer. And the collaboration between DESE and Arkansas PBS resulted in K through 5 educational content aligned with academic learning targets for 6 full weeks, 3.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. The programming was broadcast straight to students' homes, and again, we were able to overcome the obstacles of those, terrible broadband gaps that we, still must deal with. Rise and Shine included over 100 hours of on-air and online instruction, also available whenever students wanted it on demand. The Arkansas PBS team produced video lessons in core subjects, featuring a magnificent team of Arkansas Teachers of the Year, the most recent 6 ATOYs. We produced 15 original songs and animated educational music videos, 30 locally produced digital shorts on everything from nutrition, social emotional learning, science, literacy, and fitness. We had read aloud segments from featuring books by local children's authors, and 32 field trip segments to community organizations across the state, such as the Museum of Discovery, the Little Rock Zoo, Scott Family Amazeum, Crater of Diamond State Park, and on and on. And these Arkansas PBS produced segments were carefully integrated with individually selected award-winning national PBS Kids programming. So then, augmenting this targeted educational programming for K through 5th graders, our licensed educators at Arkansas PBS created weekly 28-page bilingual power packets in English and Spanish with activities that expanded the learning potential of the video lessons in the core subjects. The power packets were shipped or hand-delivered to students all across our state in a tremendous grassroots distribution effort to the food bank, to boys and girls clubs, daycare centers, summer camps, schools, and more, and also directly to homes across Arkansas. And within these power packs were terrific goodie bags full of notebooks, pencils, math manipulatives, and actual learning tools that were part and featured in the broadcast so that kids could continue learning beyond our programming. So how successful was this? Was it as successful as we all hoped and reached students? Yes, it reached hundreds of thousands on broadcast, through free local live stream, and on demand through streaming devices, the Engage Arkansas PBS app, social media, and the Arkansas PBS website. And I tell you, it's also fantastic to see what teachers have been doing and finding ways to, their own creative ways to continue to use that content. Here's how one teacher used a Rise and Shine segment. Mrs. Jones, a third grade teacher in Conway, shared this lesson with parents, asking them to watch and talk about character traits with their child, extending the learning taking place in her classroom while also managing to engage with parents and make them part of their students' learning experience. We received so many comments from parents, teachers, educational organizations about just how invaluable it was to have academic aligned content to share with children in their care over the summer. We're currently preparing enduring materials of the over 60 plus Rise and Shine learning segments for teachers to be able to access as resources in their classroom. Arkansas PBS delivered nearly 54,000 total power packets to families, community organizations, and child care providers. We've actually brought examples of those packets for you to see today. 75 community organizations across the state helped with that distribution. Our team had looked at all the possible locations serving students during the summer months and considered all the challenges many parents face with transportation and work schedules. We did our best to make the power packets easily accessible at locations where children were already located during the summer, even delivering some of them to their own front doors when they asked for that. The Arkansas Food Bank, for example, included over 1,000 power packets each week for those picking up their groceries or receiving grocery deliveries in 33 counties across the state. Power packets were distributed through library systems, the Little Rock Zoo, Arkansas Travelers, state parks, and many boys and girls clubs. And in addition to the grassroots distribution through these organizations, 23 schools, 15 of them Title I schools, and roughly 1,300 parents and grandparents requested packets for their children. Really, I think if any graphic can show the reach of Rise and Shine, it's this, that power packets made their way to an incredible 74 out of 75 Arkansas counties. We are grateful, to have had the opportunity to provide Rise and Shine to the children, parents, and grandparents of Arkansas during this great time of need. And now let's get a little lighthearted and have a look at Rise and Shine, both in front of and behind the camera.
Those are important. Letters too, wow. Oh, hey, Frisbee here. I'm just working through my Rise and Shine power packet here at Arkansas PBS. We are deep into the dog days of summer now. Arr! But we're still over here working hard on Rise and Shine. Hey, do you want to see how it's made? Well, let's go check it out. More than 100 people helped make Rise and Shine possible. Wow. Together, they created over 120 lessons about math, science, reading, and social studies. That's amazing. And those lessons were taught by my 6 new friends, all of whom are Arkansas Teachers of the Year. They're so accomplished. Wow. to mention the Arkansas educators planned, designed, printed, and delivered over 50,000 power packets to students and families across the state to keep them learning even after the day's programming was done.
It's time to rise and shine. It's a great day to learn and build and grow. More ways to show off what we know. Let's show 'em science and reading skills, math and art, color wills. Let's go to class. It's a blast. You're a great student, so we know that you can do it. Shine. Get up on your feet. Oh, it's time to rise and shine.
Get what you need to make your voice heard. No need to shout, just be a word nerd.
This is my paper pup doggy bag. We dig healthy food and loud music.
Hey everybody, welcome to Time Out with Tay, and let's get moving.
And now, for the continuing adventures of Robbie Rocket.
I'm Robbie Rocket. I like your pretty rings.
Thanks, Robbie. I'm Saturn. I've been collecting these rings for millions of years.
Gravity?
Every body of matter has a natural force that pulls objects towards it. That's gravity.
I'm just trying to get like you, Macadoo. You're so cool, we're shooting for the stars.
Get like you. Running with the dudes. Running with the dudes. Running with the dudes. Look at those.
Macadoo.
Running with the dudes.
Idiom, idiom, idiom. Yeah, we're singing and we're having fun with idioms. If you're busy as a bee, you work hard to get it done. Seeing eye to eye means you agree with someone. If you're up against the clock, it means you are hurried. If you get cold feet, that means you're feeling worried.
Good morning, everybody. Rise and shine. It's time to math, and I forgot my line.
I am your forever 2019 Arkansas Teacher of the Week.
I have a problem. You see, oh, the camera's not over there. Shoot.
Well, but still, we won't get to see all the beautiful, brilliant students of Arkansas.
Yes, we will. Because I forgot what I'm supposed to say to you.
Oh! You say rough for a bone?
No, I would never stoop to that level.
And Frisbee, you rock.
Thanks, you rock, Miss House.
Ooh. Boys and girls, there's no script on the teleprompter.
I love communication. In fact,
It's math time. That's right. It's math time, and I.
That's my fault. Everybody knows I love sweet tea the most.
Frisbee, I cannot. Oh! Okay.
I've been learning every day, and it surely shows. The more I work out my brain, the more I feel it grow. Got a problem, teach me how to solve it. Getting smarter, I'm evolving. Set the standard, know the right answer. We can have fun, making songs, we can dance tonight. Get up on your feet. Oh, come explore with me. Oh, it's time to rise and shine. Yeah, yeah. It's time to rise and shine.
Well, I don't think I have to tell you we had a blast. So thank you for letting me share the story of Rise and Shine with you. And thank you to Deputy Commissioner Stacy Smith and Secretary Key and the DESI team for giving us the opportunity to make this programming. We are really looking forward to the future of this partnership, and thank you for having me. Any questions? Or?
Thank you so much. That was a great video. Start
I would just
questions,
like
Dr.
to
Rankin?
jump in and just say thank you so much. To me, that is the quintessential example of making learning fun. And it's just so magnetic to bring students into that and let them see that learning can be fun and engaging and empowering and energizing. And hats off to you and all of your fellow A-Toys. I mean, that's just really exciting. So thank you for the efforts and the innovative thinking, the creativity, the synthesis of sight, sound, and motion and content, and educational excellence and exceptionalism all in one thing. It's pretty inspiring to see that. So thank you.
Thank you. We were thrilled with the opportunity.
What about down here to the left? Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Ms. Newton or Mr. Sutton, anything y'all want to chime in on?
No questions, just wanted to say thank you for the outstanding work. I know it reached students all across the state this past summer, but I'm excited that it's going to continue, that teachers are going to have these videos and lessons to be able to utilize in their classrooms. So thank you for all the work that you do, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Thank you. We can't either.
I would just echo Dr. Rankin's comments. Very impressive. Congratulations to you and your team. Well done.
Thank you.
If I may elaborate just a bit, I think we can't overstate the expansion work of the transmitters. Mr. Sutton, one of the areas that we were we found out we were weak in was in your area, Crittenden County, West Memphis area. That's something that Senator Ingram pointed out to us right away when we started this work back in 2020. And then we started here in Texarkana, and it really was those edges of the state. And Courtney's team did a great job of putting together plans so that we could move forward and expand the coverage. And I think when you think about 99.5% of the state as compared to 76%, that was the hardest 23% that was left. That's why PBS had not been able to do that yet, just because of the restrictions of geography and funding. So I'm glad we appreciate the governor and legislature helping us all with that. But I just want to say Arkansas PBS has really flourished under Courtney's leadership. I mean, it has been not just the partnership. She didn't even really talk about the awards like I thought she might, about like the public television version of like the Oscars. And, this team has won multiple awards for this work and other work that they do. So it's been a great partnership. We appreciate, and one thing that you can see that they're very smart too, because they get the right talent in front of the camera. They never invited me to come be on the camera, and there's a good reason why.
Actually, there's a letter in the mail to you right now.
Well, in the mail, that's risky. But no, just joking. I would have probably said, nah, you need to find somebody else anyway. But no, they got the right people. And if you've ever watched any of the clips, just the talent that our Teacher of the Year process has elevated to be a part of the work in general, and then to highlight them like this for this work has been tremendous. WGBH has nothing on us, right, Courtney?
Right.
That's right.
Talent in the classroom and talent in front of cameras without children present are two completely different things. And I cannot overstate the power that the warmth and the encouragement of your team and what that brought to us, how that freed us up just to kind of get lost in the instruction and not worry about the cameras and the crew. They were so incredibly encouraging. From the makeup artist that kept dabbing me with sea breeze so that my face wouldn't turn red, to a couple of the ladies when I knew it was the end of a very long day, and they said, "We need you to dance." And I said, "You need me to what?" Just 30 seconds. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I have this in me right now. It really had been a very long day. And I was telling the students, when you say a lengthy number, you don't say like 14,372. So that is my lesson, but I kept saying it, and we would have to cut and retake and cut and retake. And the dancing happened right after that. And they were back there behind that video camera dancing with me.
Well,
And
the dancing was impressive.
that's some of what you can't see, were all the smiles that we were gazing into as we recorded those segments. So hats off. You have an excellent team in place.
They are a great team. And,
and we couldn't have done it without them.
Frisbee, the dog, was invented, I mean, it was literally not part of the show originally. And it was an on-set invention by one of our producers, Eric White, who had bought the puppet for $2 off of eBay or something. And it was really created in the sense of fun and for everybody to relax and enjoy doing it. And I think...
and following the hit that Frisbee was, I had requested a mouse for one of my lessons, and Cheddar, with a British accent, showed up within, I think, less than a week, maybe over a weekend. Someone had found a mouse, a puppet mouse.
That's true. It was fun. It was good and it was fun. So thank you all, and thanks so much for your support of Arkansas PBS. Secretary Key.
And Rise and Shine gets a lot of the attention, but I'm glad you mentioned Arkansas Ideas and the increase in numbers. There was a time before Courtney, long before Courtney came into the role. There were questions in the legislature about how we funded that component and the value of that. But I'll just say that those questions don't get asked anymore. Because the teachers see the relevance, the level of programming that is available there, and what they've put together is just really, it's at the root of public television, at the root of educational television, and I can't brag enough about how well we are partnered together now. There was a time where Arkansas AETN at the time was kind of under the umbrella of the Department of Education many years ago. And so when you look at our budget, there's still that leftover residual connection. Even though they're not part of us on the budget list, they're connected to the Department of Education. But really now we're connected more than we've been decades probably. And thank you, because it wouldn't happen without your...
Partnership doesn't happen without both sides.
Yeah,
so
well, we appreciate that, and we know that the kids around the state are benefiting greatly from it, and teachers.
I would like to mention one other thing. We have a documentary that's part of Arkansas Ideas that will be airing on the 25th. It debuted, it made its world premiere at the Hot Springs Documentary Film Festival this week. It's called 7 Days, the Opioid Crisis in Arkansas. And I think it's a really powerful, affecting film that every student, from a certain age up needs to see, and every parent and every adult, anyone who takes a prescription medication, after a surgery. It will really open eyes, I think, to aspects of the opioid crisis and things we might avoid. So.
Yeah, and the week, not next week, but the week after, we will actually be having a viewing of that here in this auditorium. Stacy is going to, I think it's here, right?
Yeah,
We're going to have it here. Yeah, Stacy's going to be leading a panel discussion with a number of professionals, Kurt Lane with our drug office director, a number of people that are directly involved in the work. And if you get a chance to view it, we would certainly encourage you to take a look at it.
Thank you all.
I just wanted to make sure that y'all made the connection between the professional learning that I recommended yesterday and what Courtney presented today, because that was through Arkansas Ideas, the trauma-informed professional development. And one of my favorite parts about being Arkansas Teacher of the Year, and I have not begun this yet, but we get to partner with PBS to record professional learning of our choosing and our development for teachers across Arkansas. So I think that comes up for me this spring. But Joel and Stacy and all the others, they have done that in the past, and it's out there for teachers.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate you spending time with us today and sharing all your work.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
And as I say, my 5-year-old still asks, Mom, are your friends going to be on TV today? Because she loved it. So thank you all. I believe next on our agenda we have reports from Stacy Smith of those districts under state authority. Shifting gears.
All right, wasn't that fun? That was so much fun. Okay, so you have 4 reports on this agenda item. One from Earl, Lee County, and Pine Bluff that were submitted by the Office of Coordinated Support and Service. And then you also have a report from Little Rock School District. So Little Rock School District is not under state authority, but a part of the requirement when they were removed from level 5 support to level 4 was that they would continue to submit a quarterly report. So well, first, if we'll touch on the Little Rock report, and it was the last one attached, just out of respect for Dr. McGee, who's on the Zoom as well. So Little Rock is supposed to provide an update on how they're doing on the criteria that was previously established and ongoing pieces. And so Dr. McGee is on, but they did, and this is reporting from July to September. So their summer PD and getting school started. All right, so their criteria hit again on implementing PLC and HRS levels, tests and leads, their continued implementation of that, and observation and support for principals and teachers, the implementation of their science of reading and dyslexia support, also according to their budget with deficit spending, and their facilities plan. And I know that Dr. McGee is on, or I saw him there he is. I see his face now. Hi, Dr. McGee. I know he's on if any of the board members have specific questions, or you can just, or you don't have to have questions, but if you do, he's on if you have any questions for him right now.
Start over here, Ms. McFetridge, Mr. Henderson, Ms. Dean, Dr. Rankin, Ms. Post, Ms. Newton, Mr. Sutton. Okay. Well, I guess that's everyone here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I will highlight that one thing that I thought that Little Rock did a good job this year is they continued their commitment to their professional development plan that had been previously reported on about providing support, especially in the area of literacy with new curriculum that they had purchased. They also continued with their contracts with Solution Tree and providing professional learning communities and support in that area. They continued on with implementing new curriculum in the area of mathematics. So there's lots of pieces that they were started, and they continued those on in the PD for this summer. Dr. McGee and I have met a couple of times, and again, Mr. Poore and I, probably about maybe once a month, he and I will make connections, but Dr. McGee has my phone number and text and calls whenever he needs support. So thank you for being on.
Stacy, let me brag too, because maybe 3 weeks ago, I talked to a principal, one of the elementary schools in Little Rock, and they had not been engaged. I mean, they were, one of the higher performing elementary schools in the district, and this principal said that when his teachers saw what was happening with the PLC work in some of the other schools, they came back and said, well, we don't do that. We don't operate like that. We need to do that. We need to operate more like that because we have kids that need what that's going to generate. And he said, and so as principal, he went to bat. The way Little Rock kind of give school buildings some discretionary funds, principals be able to use EC. So we use some of our building funds to bring in PLC coaches, so that now, so really it's an organic spread of that work, and I think I just think that's a positive thing, that the work continues at the direction and at the urging of classroom teachers. That's really impressive.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. Have a great day. Appreciate you. Good weekend, okay? All right, so moving into, let's start with Earl School District. At Earl School District, I have John Hoy, who's also on the Zoom. If we have any specific questions for John. John works as part of our team here at the department on Office Coordinated State Support. And I'll quit reorganizing these reports at some point when I get them just like I want them. But one thing I did to the reports that are different this time is I removed all the links, because I felt like that's, you know, you're trying to figure out which one to go to. So I tried to put the content you really needed in the link, just right on the paper, so you weren't having to go to another link. Okay, so that was something that we did a little bit different. This is a report that is legislatively required because these districts are under state authority and we act as their board. And so this is also being shared with the House and Senate Ed committees. But just highlight some pieces on Earl. I'm not going to go over the entire report, but starting the school year in Earl, one of the biggest concerns we had was loss of students. At the beginning of school, we only had 318 students report back to on-site instruction, and Earl did not offer a digital option. Okay, you approved Earl yesterday. They came back in and said that second wave if we needed it. Okay, they ended the year last year with over 400 students. So coming back in with 318 was very alarming. I have to congratulate, because the districts rolled up their sleeves, they got out, they knocked on doors, they made phone calls, and they found their students, which was important. So right now we're at back up to 421 students on site for instruction, which is important. Okay, last year I think they were right at like 426 for their third quarter ADM. So they're back up close to where they were at this spring. It's very important for Earl because we were seeing a continuous loss of students every year. And so maintaining them, especially above that 400 point, is important. So they found their kids. Very, very proud of them for that. One of the obstacles and one of the issues that Earl has is keeping staff and having staff that is all certified. And that was a big push that the superintendent really went out and tried to do some recruitment. She did hire a lot of staff this year that was licensed that she had not had previously, but they still struggle with a competitive salary because they do have fiscal issues from the reason why they were put in state takeover originally with their fiscal distress plan and the misuse of federal funds and some of those pieces from years previous. So having a competitive salary, they did get to increase their salary to the minimum that's expected for this year, but they didn't jump up to the one that's going to be expected for next year. So they still have to do that. We did use some of our ESSER funding for retention payments or bonuses for teachers that maintain to stay. We also created a learning loss plan for this year where teachers are assigned mentoring with kids are assigned to teachers and addressing that student's specific academic needs in a mentorship way, not only academically, but also social emotional needs. And those teachers have to keep up with their documentation of what they're doing with those kids, and we have a payment going out 3 times throughout the year. So that's incentivizing that extra work for addressing that learning loss, but it also increases their pay to be a more competitive with the surrounding districts around them. Okay, so those are some things that we did creatively with the use of their ESSER funds, also addressing learning loss. Another thing I want to really brag on them about is before school started, they did have a community event in which they brought their families and their kids in, and that's when they did all their registration paperwork for their families. They handed out food, they handed out school supplies, they had a barber and someone there, they cut hair, they braided hair, they had a vaccination clinic and they vaccinated I don't remember the number now, I just went blank. But it was a significant number for that event in that community. And so that's good stuff. And that's what you talk about. It's some of that heart stuff. And that's one thing that I do see with the superintendent that's appointed there right now is trying to pull those pieces together. A priority right now for Earl is still their finances, okay? I have to brag on Tracy, who is here at the department in our fiscal unit, Tracy Webb. She is working very, very closely with the district and really breaking down the billing capacity piece and understanding with the district on where they are. Right now, it's very difficult. Last year, I would say no to a lot of things. And there seemed to be a disconnect between the understanding that you don't have any money, you can't do that, when the school district down the street's doing it. And so the same, and we talked about this with Little Rock, when ESSER funds came in, it gave you the ability to kind of shift some things and shore some things up. So we're doing that, okay? Just like I said about using those funds in a way to keep the retention because of COVID, and also this learning loss plan, trying to keep a more competitive salary. So we're using those additional federal funds to do some things that hopefully we can get them in a place financially where they are stable. Okay, so that still is a really big piece for the district. Tracy and I both participated with their community advisory committee that they still have, which was their board when the district was taken over. This last month, we presented on a Saturday and really tried to give, this is what the picture of your finances are right now. And these are some of the big discussions and things that we continue to have, okay? So.
Stacey, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Reading the report on Earl, the $636,000 of misused federal funds, are the ESSER funds that they'll receive any of that use for that?
No, sir, we can't repay misuse of federal funds with federal funds. So what happened back then is the state actually stepped in and returned the money. And they are on a payment plan with us. So within their budget each month, they are returning, they pay us back. And so that is a monthly bill that they have that we've built into their budget. And they are in a repayment plan. And so that's what we're doing there.
How many months will it take to repay that debt, do you think?
I'd have to go back and talk to Tracy on that. But I will say that each year, as we've made financial decisions about the district and where we are with certain things, the amount they've paid has differentiated. There have been some months where we were concerned about them making payroll that we did not have them pay us that month. So, you know, but again, it's about how do you, and we don't want to hurt kids. We want to make sure kids are getting what they need and that the district can be financially stable. And I do believe with the work with Tracy, with the superintendent, and with John, that we are making some really good progress this year and feel like we're going to be in a better position by the end of the year. The capacity building piece in the district and making sure that they understand how school finance works is really important.
Well, I really think it's important that a district like Earl, small district like Earl, Northeast Arkansas, high poverty level, high minority level, sustains itself. And so we're all pulling for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I appreciate that question because it is the finance piece that is a driver for all decisions that we're making there. And it's constantly as a conversation. Throwing money at stuff doesn't fix it, okay? But you have to shore up the things that you're doing and you have to do them really, really well. And so another priority for Earl right now and for John is making sure that classroom instruction, what we do have going on, is happening in every classroom and doing walkthroughs and making sure that we're seeing teaching in every room. And so those constant walkthroughs are something that John has an emphasis on. We also have Julie Olmstead and Ryan Burgess on my team who work with the principals because, again, leadership and building capacity there is so important. You have a literacy specialist who's also assigned who goes on to campuses regularly and also helps. If you have any questions specific to Earl, I've got for John, because John might be able to jump in here and add something that I might not know. If not, we'll move on to the next one.
Dr. Rankin? Questions down here to my left. Ms. Newton or Mr. Sutton, anything else?
No, thank you.
Hey, John, do me a favor and at least give a wave. That's a rock star right there. And not only does John work closely with Earl, and I've reassigned everybody, and so he's the main man for Earl, but he's also a math whiz and math teacher. And when I'm talking about Lee County in a minute, I want you to know that this gentleman right here was driving to Lee County and teaching math 2 to 3 days a week in a classroom. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? Yes?
I'm sorry. In the report, it says that they're working with a group that provides certified teachers.
Yes.
And we keep hearing about other districts not being able to find certified. So I'm just wondering who the group is.
Is it are they proximity? What's the name of the group, John or Sheila?
It's proximity, but we are also working with Virtual Arkansas. They are now doing live teachers as well.
So on proximity with that again, it's a digital piece, but proximity actually uses your curriculum, but their demand for increase has gone through the roof. So while Earl has gotten the teachers from proximity, Lee County also is trying to do a contract with them for some teachers. There's just a teacher shortage in those areas to get certified teachers. Good question. Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Move on to Lee County. I want to start just with bragging on Lee County and the commitment of the leadership. Their high school principal, Dr. Farr, their elementary principal, Ms. Branch, and their superintendent, Ms. Murdoch. They've really doubled down on what it means to have student engagement and classroom instruction and what that looks like in their buildings. I know Commissioner Key got to visit the campus a couple of weeks ago with me, and I'm gonna pause so that you can do some bragging, and then I'll add on. How's that?
Well, I didn't know at what point you were going to let me brag, so but it was very impressive. I mean, Stacy and I went. It was kind of impromptu for me. Stacy had planned to go, and my calendar was pretty light that day. So on Tuesday, it was a Tuesday. I said,
I have no idea what day it was.
You're going down there? You want somebody to go with you? So I did, and what we saw was just a lot different than when I'd been there a few years ago. Teaching in every classroom. You think, well, that's natural. Well, sometimes it's not. In struggling schools, we know that doesn't always happen. It was happening in Mariana. The professionalism was at a high level. Dr. Farr was very impressive. Sadly, I didn't get to see Ms. Branch. She was out that day, but Dr. Farr is a very dynamic young principal, and he when somebody calls him and says, "Hey, guess what? Secretary of Education is in your building," that's kind of a shock to the system. But his interactions, his tour, just seeing his leadership and his interactions with his students was very impressive. So over at the elementary school, I mean, you walked in there and it was definitely an elementary school. Bright colors, themes, that they all had, that they were all in one, in alignment of their school theme. And Ms. Murdoch would take us into these classrooms, and she knew the story behind each one of these teachers. So you really could tell she was very well engaged with them. And stories of a 40-year paraprofessional who had decided to become a certified teacher. And elementary, we saw it. She was teaching science of reading. We saw the lesson she was teaching. It was outstanding, and she was doing a great job. So I think this board should feel encouraged by the work that's happening in Lee County. they are making progress.
But they absolutely are. And John, who I introduced you to a minute ago, was assigned there last year. And I think one of the pivotal things they did last year is they have a large contract with Solution Tree for professional learning communities and that direct coaching support. And they were struggling with it last year. And John reached out and said, where can we go visit? And he and the superintendent went and visited another school in the state and then came back and said, we're in. And she then has made it a priority. And I'll tell you, the elementary principal, Ms. Branch, last year, working closely with Brent Miller, she bought in. She was probably one of the first ones to really buy in. And so you started seeing that leadership piece buying in and the teachers, and it started making a change. They still struggle having licensed teachers in their classroom. And when you walked around from classroom to classroom, Dr. Miller could easily say, this is a brand new teacher. This is someone who's on a 1240, but she's working towards a licensure. This one is, so every one of them had a story. And so when we're going into support, sometimes we have to, especially our specialists who are going in, whether they're our literacy specialists or our coaches, you almost have to take 2 steps back, because sometimes we go in and we think we're teaching them what they need, when you really have to step back and be very fundamental on some of the foundational classroom management pieces. Or how do you use the scope and sequence set out in a basal and align that to your standards? You know, just some pieces there on how do you, proximity in the classroom for handling classroom management. We'd have literacy specialists go into these classrooms and go in and model in the beginning really good literacy, lessons. And we had to kind of come back and say, okay, wait, what did they just adopt? I need you to take that basal, I need you to take that lesson, and I need you to model how you would use it. So that that's what and so my literacy team, not my literacy team, listen to me, they're not mine. This literacy team here at the department, they are phenomenal. And Dr. Pride and Sandy Shepard and Dallas Henderson, I mean, the whole group, they are in those schools working with teachers, and they have directed them to curriculum that's aligned and going in and modeling that in the classrooms. And when you walked around that elementary school, Commissioner Key, did we see it?
We saw it.
We saw it.
You opened the door. When we got there, Dallas was in a room.
She was at the high school.
At the high school. Okay, so here's a literacy specialist that I'm guessing she's primarily early literacy, elementary, but she was working in the high school, and they had data. I mean, this is all data informed, and I'm looking at the data, and these were, I think, 9th or 10th graders that they were looking at, and you could see a lot of the gaps that those kids had. It's because they didn't get the teaching that we saw going on in the elementary school. So what I told Stacy on the way back was, look, I'm not concerned about those kids. How do we make sure we get those high school kids what they missed? Because the elementary kids are getting it. And so when they get to 8th, 9th, 10th grade, those data walls are going to look much different, because there's not going to be as much red as what Dallas and the school leadership was looking at then. So that's, again, to be encouraged by that. And but I'm going to brag too. It's the learning services team. Stacy, you're probably going to get to it. We've really changed how we do state takeover. Those of you that have been here for a number of years, it has not been an easy journey with that concept. But now we have math professionals here, math teachers, that they have gone to Lee County. Some of the times it's been Zoom, but many times they have driven to Lee County to teach math, because Lee County didn't have a high school math teacher. They couldn't find someone. So, and the feedback we've gotten from those is they love the engagement with the students, and the students love having that level of engagement with these teachers. And you think, well, how does that work? Because you've got different ones. How many? 5, 6, maybe, or more different. At
Lee County, at one point, Sheila, I think we had 12 people volunteering to help.
Okay, so and you think, well, how does that work with all these different teachers? Well, when you have the the students were getting good quality instruction. The co-op has been instrumental. We've had a co-op specialist coming in, and when we were there, Dr. Farr said, when the co-op teacher came in person, and the kids gave her standing ovation because they acknowledged that what they were getting. It's great to have, this goes to your conversation that you asked us about long-term subs. Ms. Newton, I know this is something that's has been an ongoing concern and certainly an important topic for you. There's nothing that can beat a good teacher in the classroom. You can't just have warm bodies in there. As great as it is to have somebody willing to go in and be a sub, there's just too much that those students miss if they don't have high-quality teachers. That's why you saw Dr. Pfeffer with so much passion presenting what she presented yesterday. But just, the team support that is being provided is so much greater than where we were 5 years ago when it came to state takeover districts.
Yeah, and Sheila, give a wave, because Sheila is the OCSS person assigned to Lee County, and she is there, golly, probably 4 days a week on campus helping people, and Dr. Miller is also there providing direct support. And you've got the Solution Tree team and literacy folks, math folks, so all different folks coming in and helping, but I appreciate the work that they're doing. It's outcomes. We got to have outcomes now. That's the bottom line, is we got to see outcomes. We are anecdotally seeing the right work, and we're seeing the right people. Dr. Farr at the high school is a big win. He drives from Jacksonville, I believe, to go be a principal at Lee County, and he's first-year principal there. And so we've tried to wrap him with lots of support, but he's a superstar. Miss Branch at the elementary school, she's a superstar. And they're changing those pieces. Miss Murdoch, I don't know how she does it, but she is so in that community that I can't tell you how many people she has talked back into coming back in to teach, pulled them out of retirement because she says, we don't have people in our schools, we need you. And so when Dr. Pfeffer was here yesterday talking about teacher residency program, growing your own, that whole team of Carly's group that is out there, it is so important that these communities have to be able to grow their teachers to stay and build them. And as we walk around and we identify teachers that you're looking at them and you're going, this is the leader, making sure they get into a principal leadership program so that they can become the next superintendent or principal in their community. So it's very important. So we've got to have some outcomes in Lee County. They still, I want to stand here and brag on them all day long, but they still have lots of struggles, and they're working very, very, very hard. Organization in their business management side and making sure paperwork and all those pieces, those are all still things everybody's working towards, and we're going to continue to work closely with them. Any questions specific to Lee County that Sheila or I may answer for you?
Down to my left, questions? Here, Ms. Post? Yes.
It said that positions had been added to implement their MTSS. I'm just wondering what those positions were.
Okay, so Sheila, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that, about the multi-tier system of support, and especially how they've organized that, and any positions that have been added.
Okay, we have a position at the high school and one at the elementary. They'll be working with Dr. Watson. He is working with them now. He is on our team to really begin building that program. They're focusing now quite a bit on PBS and adding the expectations, clarifying. Right now, they're working on clarifying what are office managed versus teacher managed, classroom managed behaviors, and making sure that we're tight on those. Elementary is about a year ahead of the high school on that work, but he's going back to, since we have so many new teachers, making sure that that's being communicated. They have other roles, so that's not their only role. They're part-time in the classroom as well.
So the folks that were added are still teaching in the classroom and then also organizing the multi-tiered systems of support. And the schools have allocated time on going back and providing those supports. But again, that's a struggling point too. So whenever someone is partly out of the classroom, then you got to fill that classroom role. And so there's always that balance. And that's just another one of the hurdles they have to overcome.
I would like to hear a little bit more about Lee County and what they're doing with their family and community engagement.
Family and community engagement. So, Sheila, can you talk a little bit about family and community engagement within Lee County?
Yes, we have there is a position there that that's her role, is support and supporting both schools in reaching out to families. And she told me she serves sort of as a liaison between the community and the school district. She's one that does the home visits. Miss Murdoch is also actively looking for social workers. We don't have any in the school currently, and has advertised for those positions. So that is definitely something else that they want to add.
Lee County also faced an issue at the beginning of school about finding students, especially in the secondary. They had a lot of students who didn't show up on the first day of school. At this point, there are only 8, I think, that they could not find. Is that right? 8. But they went out again, knocking on doors, calling people, your kids got to get to school. And they also, with the digital option, did not have, it was in person. They wanted people back in the classrooms, back in school. So it was big.
Thank you.
Ms. Newton or Mr. Sutton, do you all have any questions?
No, I was going to ask about its ADM, but I'm reading now. It looks like that has sort of remained stable for the last couple of years.
Yes, it has.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Pine Bluff. So we did, those of you who are new to the board, last year we, Dollarway School District, we annexed them in with Pine Bluff. So that was official in July. We did keep all of the schools open in Dollarway. So those campuses are open. The Dollarway High School is open. And then the elementary, middle school is open, okay? And then you have the Pine Bluff schools that are open. But it's one district now. It's all Pine Bluff, all under the same central office. And so coordinating our positions, transferring all of our policies, all of those pieces have been completed. Even just the details of the finance and the bookkeeping and the enrolling banks accounts that had to be closed and pulled over, all those pieces I think at this point have been tied up. Jennifer, if you'll give a wave on the screen so everybody can see who you are, that's Jennifer Barbary. She works directly with Pine Bluff from our team, and she is on campus a lot. If you might have noticed her here yesterday, because she also supports Marvel Lee Lane, who was here yesterday. They're in level 4, but they also we provide a lot of support to them. And she was here yesterday cheering on the superintendent who was presenting to you. So Pine Bluff. One of the obstacles that Pine Bluff had as well is loss of students. And it started off at the beginning of the year with a very alarming number of loss of students. At one point we were talking 700, 800. I mean, we were starting off at like 1,000, and it just kept whittling down. At this point, I think we're down to 260. We've found about 240 of the kids, but there's still a decrease of 260 kids from where we were at the beginning of the year. We do know a lot of schools, kids who went to other districts or moved, and families that chose to go complete homeschool or virtual options. Same thing in Pine Bluff. There was a virtual option offered, but the push was to get the majority of the students back on campus because we felt like we were losing lots of student engagement and kids were not being successful. So that was a huge barrier there. I did note in here the conversation that we had earlier today about violence. That's in the report. We have had some significant, we had one, what I would call a significant fight at the Pine Bluff campus, and we did shut down school for a day and reorganized. I have 2 staff members who have pretty much spent this entire school year at the high school campus, Ryan Burgess and Dr. Michael Watson, both working and supporting the high school campus and in making sure that the school and the campus is safe. I think we went 9 days from the start of school where we had fights every single day, and just trying to get everything to temper down, get our systems back in place. They have a brand new principal there this year, and so trying to support him, supporting, so when we did close the school down because of the fight, actually it was on the last state board meeting, I left this state board meeting to go there. And our response was, I don't care if we're here till midnight. We're gonna have a new plan by tomorrow so that we can support teachers. And on that Friday, we actually closed a building and moved teachers to a different room so that we could have a better positioning of where students and staff were. We redid complete duty schedules, supervision schedules. We went back and revisited their policies on being a closed campus, which that campus is very open. And knew that we have lots of people walking on campus all day long, from bringing food at lunch to, and so we started sending out messages. This is a closed campus. You cannot bring lunch to your this is a closed campus. And so starting to enforce the policies that were already in place and talking to staff about what that looks like. But increasing the supervision. School resource officers that they'd had in the past and security that they'd had in the past. Some of those, the community themselves has had just the police department having enough staff. So some of those positions that we'd had in the past, we didn't have starting school this year. And so Barbara Warren has done an excellent job reaching back out to the sheriff's department, the local police department, to say, we have to have you here. We need your support right now. So we went, I think that very next week when we opened up, remind you, we had fights every single day with a significant fight, which 15 kids got arrested. That's how significant it was. The next week, we went all week, and I think we had a minor fight. And it was at the end of the week, and we were like, come on now. And it was with 2 seniors who knew better, And so the following week, again, that we have gone from having every day something to at least somewhat where we feel like we've got at least some control. However, they're still working hard. Barbara's working with the community. She's working very closely with Judge Brown. There is a community group that's applied for a grant. So there's lots of work going on, but we're not anywhere close. And I don't want to stand here and act like we are, but there is lots of work being done. Yes.
Stacy, can the state not help supplement the pay rate for police officers to attract them to the school?
I think there's just an overwhelming shortage on top of that too. She has posted some positions and has some positions that are being filled, but in that we've got to do a lot of training, which Dr. Hill, the OK program, that was one of those things, as I talked to Commissioner Key earlier this week about some commissioned officers or security guards, but make sure they have the right training to be more mentors and being able to implement the mentorship programs that we also need.
Well, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know much better than I, but if the public doesn't feel that the district is safe, it won't work. And so whatever the department needs to do to enhance this appearance of increased security, I'm all for it, and I would think the board would be all for it as well.
Yeah, and that is something that we have done, and the police department is on, I think they have a presence every day now on site. They've actually, I think the high school actually contracted with one for off-duty that's been on site. So, and just the visibility around the campus, especially during arrival and dismissal, has been a priority. So that's something Ms. Warren is working very closely with the local authorities to do.
I would just think that police forces, by and large, are underpaid anyway in earning off-duty or overtime or whatever we can do to enhance that and to attract more officers for at least for a period of time until, it appears as though things are totally and absolutely under control. I would be for.
Okay, thank you. And another thing I want to brag on Ms. Warren for doing that she did in every one of her schools is she has hired a social worker for every one of her campuses that she used her ESSER funds to do. So that has been another piece about trying to make that connection and get resources to folks that need resources. So the high school alone in Pine Bluff has been a full-time job for my staff. So I wish I know, Jennifer, you've been in those other buildings, and we still have our literacy team, our special education team, and other folks who are going into the other campuses and working, but the high school has been the priority since school started. Jennifer, do you want to add anything to that?
Just that we have been our main focus has been security and safety at Pine Bluff High School, and we've worked with Jack Roby as well. But Pine Bluff is still the main focus. And I'll say, yes, we do have 2 off-duty police officers every day at Pine Bluff High due to Ms. Warren's efforts. And so that's been a real positive outlook. And I do see that in this board packet, we're looking to hire a commissioned officer as well. So I think that's something else that she's been able to work out. But it has been the lack of people, not the lack of wanting to do it or even funding at this time. It's just been the lack of having someone to take that place. In the other campuses, we're very proud of the fact that we've purchased curriculum. The district has purchased curriculum K-12 that's aligned to the science of reading, and we're going forward with trying to provide that professional development. And there are positives going on in the other buildings as well as the high school regarding curriculum. We just haven't had our focus has been safety for this last quarter. So
it should be, yeah.
Yeah, and there is a balance too, and then I think this goes back to the conversation we had before. The presence of police officers and commissioned officers, that's all reactive. We got to have the proactive piece, and that's what you're speaking to. And so the relationship, I mean, all those things that we've got to continue to build and do, and that's where Ms. Warren is really pushing that. And the community piece and bringing in the right community people. The Minstrel Alliance group in the community has been big and has pushed in. They have showed up. They were there the day after the big fight, as a presence to make sure that there are people here and we're watching. They've tried to coordinate with their buses to have more adults from the churches locally in the community standing in areas where kids are getting off buses, and standing in areas where the bus doesn't even drop off, but you got to walk 3 blocks down and there's nobody there. They're trying to have areas where churches have adopted corners to say, this is the place we're going to be. So some of those pieces are happening, but it's big. I mean, we're asking a superintendent who is she's doing all this other stuff, and at the same time, we're trying to have academic outcomes so that students can read. So it's big, and I'll have moments where I go into Secretary Key's office and I'm just and it's like I can do it because they're mine now, and then when somebody else criticizes, I'm like, let me tell you something, people, everybody's trying to do it all. And so I'm really proud of Ms. Warren. I'm really proud of Jennifer and Ryan and Michael and Julie and all the folks that are on those campuses. I'm really proud of the people at Pine Bluff Schools who are showing up every day. There are a lot of teachers and staff on there who care about kids and want to see the right stuff happen. And then there's some that I walk in their classrooms and I'm like, why aren't you teaching? So we have a balance. And so that's where our folks have to mentor and support leadership in the district to raise that bar at a level that says this is who we are in the district. And that's what I think when I'm saying earlier when I was bragging about Lee, we had a time where we were walking in Lee classrooms and nobody was teaching. We've shifted that. There's an expectation set of this is what we're doing in our school, and there's a sense of pride. All right. So right now when we're talking about Pine Bluff, that's what we're trying to click right now. Is we got to get that level of expectation, what's happening in every single one of those classrooms, and that this is the place we want to be. And there are teachers in Pine Bluff. I went to their opening day ceremonies. They're proud to be in Pine Bluff. They were proud. And their school names were getting called out. And people were cheering. Their principals were, this is my school. There is a sense of pride. Barbara Warren has a sense of pride for her district. Okay? But we got to rise up as a community, and there's got to be a lot of support and wraparounds for them to continue to make progress. And there's still a long ways to go.
Stacy,
yep.
I'll be curious to know what does the outreach look like with the recruiter director that they hired?
With the what director?
The recruiter director.
Okay, so she started retention recruitment. She started just this year. We actually have some other grants here at the department through Educator Effectiveness that goes through Carly Saraceni's group, and they work with the Educational Cooperative. And so with the Educational Cooperative, with this new position, her main role this year is to support the teachers that are in the classrooms that are non-licensed. Okay, so this is a new position for this one. So she didn't, at this point, hasn't had the opportunity to go out there and recruit you to come. But one thing that we saw in Pine Bluff was when we looked at their data last year on their unlicensed staff from 1240 waivers, they had a lot of teachers that had been sitting with an unlicensed 1240 waivers for 3 or 4 years. And the expectation is when we approve that waiver, you're gonna get licensed.
Yes.
So Miss Warren did a very hard call, and if you'd gone 4 years, she gave you your COVID year. So if you were over 4 years and you hadn't got it, she non-renewed you. And if we couldn't fill the position, she'd let you reapply for it. She might have hired you back, but you now know you got to get it done. And so she has this position's role, one of their main roles is making sure that staff that is hired, that is not licensed, that she's supporting them and that they're working towards their license. That whole idea of growing your own, they're trying to create that. They've been in conversation and partnership with UAPB. We actually had, we pulled it. We had a waiver on here for them to do and they pulled it because they said we're not ready yet. Barbara said, I think we've gone too fast. We're not all on the same page. I think I talked to you about that, Ms. Sarah. So more work to happen in that area.
I can certainly see where the teacher residency program would really benefit them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thing, and it sounds like it's what you're doing in that environment is continue to identify the wins for them, because I think that's important as you elevate the expectations that you want, because sometimes in that environment, you know, that you're pushing and pulling is that, you know, a little cheering along the way helps as you push them towards your level of expectation. Expectation drives performance, but we all know the relational piece of helping them feel valued as people is a critical part of improving what I call many times the motivational deficiency for excellence.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. There are people working. One other thing I wanted to really rise up to you for the board is that they have gone into a partnership with WestEd. Now that was the group that came here and helped us with the annexation and did those stakeholder engagement meetings and gave you data and all that. So we've continued to meet with that group. And the district now has gone into a contract with them to help with the strategic plan after the annexation. Remember I told you that after the annexation that we wanted to create a vision for where we were heading as Pine Bluff as a district. This group is helping do that. Okay, and if you ask Barbara what are the priorities, you know, she talks about leadership and teacher retention and recruitment. She talks about safety, health, safety, wraparound services, mental health supports. You know, when Barbara was talking about having vaccination clinics, at one point she was thinking, can I get a van to drive around to people's houses and give them shots? I mean, she's trying to think, how do I do it differently? While all this other stuff, while this other noise is going on too. I mean, so there's lots hitting her. But this strategic plan with a partnership with WestEd, I think is going to be important. Safety piece, career technical center, educational centers, like how does that fit in? Business partnerships. So WestEd's goal, because what I see is one of the stumbling blocks for this district or even for the department, is there's so much going on that when you create a strategic plan, the follow through and making sure someone's doing it and keeping everybody accountable to what we said we were going to do is the hard part. WestEd's going to carry that ball for us. Okay, they're going to organize our meetings. They're going to make sure that people we said we were going to have get the invitations and are there. They're going to take the notes. They're going to say, what are we measuring this by? So you talked about what's the data. They're going to be able to pull all that for us. And then, okay guys, we're meeting next month. These are the things that are supposed to be done. Who do I need to reach out to? So they're going to have that consistency piece that I think is important as we move forward, because it just, you get caught up in the immediate crisis, fight, need, thing, the fire, and you don't keep this long-term plan going. And so I think that'll be huge for the district and something I'm excited to see how that goes. So there, and another thing, I'm sorry, and another. One thing else about the West Ed partnership, and this came from Barbara. Barbara said, it's time for me to pull back in the community, really pull back in the community. And she came with an idea of saying, I want to create a group that's giving input, but I want it to really be strategic and I want it to have a much deeper impact. I don't want it to just be individuals. So she brainstormed a list of different community groups within. And what she's doing is she's reaching out to those community groups. So the Divine Nine, which are the fraternities and sororities within the community, she's reached out to that group and said, I want a representative from your group to be on my committee. And your job is to take back the actions and support that we're doing to your group. She's reached out to NAACP. I want your group to be a part of this committee. Who do you want to be on this group from? You're going to be a part. She's reached out to the city. She's reached out to the Minstrel Alliance. She's reached out to the teachers group. There's a teacher group in the community. So she has strategic Go Forward Pine Bluff. She's reached out to them. I want you to be a part of this. So she's bringing all these groups that are in the community working on their stuff, trying to bring them in to be this and West Ed's going to then help us with all of these different groups. But they'll be given the input. So when a group says, I want to be a part of this, the idea is it's not just one person sitting on that committee. That group is representing their organization, and they take it back to their organization, and hopefully we have some depth. So that's one other thing we're trying to do. Okay, I'll pause and see if you have any questions.
Questions over to my right, Ms. Post.
West Ed was the one question I had. It's still a little abstract to me. So is that like a state organization or is it something local in Pine Bluff?
So they're an educational, national nonprofit group that we worked with our co-op center. So our Region 14, the group that organized the meeting for us this last week, they connected me with them. And they operate on federal funds, but then also have funding contracts where we actually pay for services. And so they're national experts from all over that organize to have different projects that they work on.
What does she call the committee that you were saying where individuals are on it, but they've got their collective hat on?
She is just now putting that together. I think she's calling it the Pine Bluff Advisory Committee. No. I'll have to find out. I mean, it's just now getting organized.
Right.
So I'll have to come back with the official name.
I do love that idea, though, where the individual is there, but they represent.
Right, and if you can't attend for your organization, they have someone else who's coming.
To me, that is so scalable in all across the board to help bring that true stakeholder engagement to the table and communication back, those feedback loops.
And that's something that West Ed did a great job with us before on the feedback loops, is they held online meetings with different groups where they took people's real comments and then they put it back in the data. Some of it was flattering and some of it wasn't. Not everybody liked the department and the feedback that they gave, and then some people did. But third party, here's what it says.
Questions down here to the left?
Okay. Appreciate you, thank you.
Oh, but I was going to ask Ms. Newton or Mr. Sutton if there's anything else to add. Okay.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
I was just going to make a comment. I think it hasn't dawned on me that, the department, all the things that you guys do to run education for the state of Arkansas, and then have a further task of actually running some school districts, getting them out of the ditch, back up on solid ground, is in and of itself a whole world of obligations and duties that I think we take for granted. So I just want to commend your department in really running two businesses, and it's a tough job, and we all appreciate what you guys do. And if we can get them up, and there'll always be somebody on the list. I'm sure there will. But I think you guys are doing a great job with what you have right now.
I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Keep going. Okay, last on our agenda. Are we okay to keep going? Anyone need a break? We'll do a break then. We'll do a 5-minute break. We'll come back let's do 12:07. We'll start back. 12:07, we will get back started. Thank you all for your patience here. Last on our agenda item is the Arkansas Leadership Academy update, and I believe Scott Smith is going to start us off. Thank you again for your patience.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to come back and give you some highlights on the strides we've made since we were last with you. I do recognize we're the only thing between you and lunch, so we'll try to be quick. But with that said, we invite questions or comments along the way. With me today is Dr. Carrie White, who is our director of ALA and is also with EduToss at the University of Oklahoma. She'll be presenting behind me. And then Ken Rich, who you may remember is our head of school finance and is working with the executive leadership sessions. And then Dondi Freisinger, who you've not met before, I don't think, is now the director of the Master Principal Program. So they'll be presenting today. I think we were last with you in April. Since that time, we've finished up our listening tour of the state. We've had 5 cohort site visits, 6 statewide Zoom sessions, 5 conference breakout sessions, an unknown number of small group and face-to-face and virtual meetings with folks all over the state. We've had launched all of our advisory committees that were in the program. We've hired most, except one position, of all of our full-time positions, and we've launched our website. Since August 25th of this year, since the program really kind of started then, we've delivered 75 hours of professional development content to 4 cohorts of Master Principal Program and Executive Leader Empowerment. We've had more than 500 registrations for our leadership development sessions. Carrie will go more into that when she presents. And we've had over 119 schools or co-ops participating in the program statewide. And we've launched the cohort application for school team empowerment and instructional leader empowerment. With that said, I also want to recognize some of our other team members who are not here but have been vitally important. Melody Morgan, Dr. Mary Jane Bradley with Arkansas State, Barbara Hunter Cox, Dr. Belinda Bisco with the University of Oklahoma, and Lisa Pryor with the University of Oklahoma. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Carrie and have her present or make our presentation for you. And I just also want to extend an invite to each and every one of you to come to one of our sessions if you'd like to attend. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to be back with you today. As Scott said, our plan today is to give you an update from where we were in April. So we kind of follow that same format, but we know some of you weren't with us in April, so we'll try to fill in some pieces along the way. I believe you know that the Arkansas Leadership Academy transitioned to the Arkansas Public School Resource Center in July with partnership with Arkansas State University and EduToss. The ultimate goal of the ALA, like the state's ultimate goal, is to see educational equity and excellence for all Arkansas students. We do believe that we are completely aligned with DESE's vision of leading the nation in student-focused education. The role we play in that piece is different. And so the role we play, our vision, is to be the state's premier leadership development hub, a place where all Arkansas educational leaders can come and find their leadership capacity needs met through personalized professional pathways. We try to model what we want for students, for our educators, and giving them flexibility and choice, so personalized professional learning pathways. We believe that as that capacity is built statewide, we will see systemic change, and that will lead to improved teaching and learning. Our theory of action, I'm going to break up into a couple of different slides here for you. So starting with the end in mind. If our ultimate goal is to have educational equity and excellence, what are those expected outcomes? And starting with the far left-hand side of the screen, we expect to see improved student achievement in the state. That includes, obviously, growth. We expect to see improved student learning, so those instructional experiences. What does that look like? How does that feel, perhaps differently than it has in the past? And improved student well-being outcomes, which we've talked a lot about today. We believe the way we have an impact on those is by seeing changes at the school and classroom level. So we're looking at the research that says what school and classroom practices will make the most difference in student outcomes. Those are improved human capital management. Are we using every one of our educators well? That's teachers, staff, administrators, as well as all of the volunteers and community members who are a part of the work. Improved school climate and environment. Are we setting up the conditions well for instruction? And then improved classroom instructional practices, looking at the evidence-based practices that we know actually do make a difference for students. We will be measuring these kinds of outcomes, not because we have a direct change in them, but because these are the things that will show us that what we're doing in leadership capacity is making a difference at the local level. So backing up from this piece of our theory of action, if those are the results that we want to see, the way we do that is through professional learning and capacity building in leadership concepts. So the research shows us that 3 big leadership focus areas are what will make the biggest impact on those classroom and school level practices. Collaborative leadership, which I like to think of as just collecting all of the leadership skills within an organization wherever they reside. So that's from teachers to administrators to students to parents, but pulling together all of those leadership concepts. Collective efficacy, which is the shared conviction that as educators we can make a difference in student outcomes regardless of all other factors. And then cultural competence, our ability to teach students who come from a culture or cultures different from our own. So within those 3 big focus areas, we are always looking for data-driven decision-making. We're looking at those effective instructional practices, and as you've been talking about today, the social and emotional needs of students and educators, and how we can have an influence on those. All of that work that we're doing is aligned to the statewide initiatives, including high reliability schools and professional learning communities, but we're in constant contact with people here at DESE to make sure that we're moving in the same direction that they are. In the darker blue box there, we've identified 3 ways that we believe, 3 strategies that we believe will make the biggest difference in implementing this leadership development. And that's by expanding the offerings of the Arkansas Leadership Academy, providing equitable access so that all educators can participate in Arkansas Leadership Academy services, and then integrating the services that we provide so that they don't feel disjointed from one another. The expansion piece is the one where we feel like we have the biggest opportunity for leverage, expanding the reach and providing greater access. And so we've created some, what we refer to as universal services, or tier 1, if we're thinking of a multi-tiered system of support. What are the services that would be available to any educator? And then expanding those so that, again, classroom teachers all the way to school board members believe that they have a role to play in the leadership of a school. We've divided that into 2 big buckets of work. So on the left-hand side of this, I just realized earlier I was saying on the left-hand side and I was talking about the right-hand side. Now I really am talking about on the left-hand side of the screen. ALA Reach is our newest component of the Arkansas Leadership Academy. This is something that we envisioned as an opportunity for any leader or aspiring leader to participate as their schedule and their needs allow. And so we refer to this as our lean in and lean out set of services. We'll talk about several of those in just a few moments. And then on the right-hand side, the ALA Collaborative, which is divided into several different programs and empowerment experiences, are cohort-based programs that require an application. So any Arkansas leader or aspiring leader may apply for those as is appropriate, but they are cohort-based. And again, we're going to talk about each of these in detail in a moment, kind of where we are, a status update on each of those different pieces. As Scott mentioned, we want to invite you to participate either in our ALA Reach work or in the cohort-based programs as your schedules allow. The Reach work is almost all virtual, and I'll show you in just a second how you can register for those and get those Zoom links and participate. The cohort-based programs are, some of them are completely face-to-face and some of them are a hybrid. And so if you're interested in any of those, please let me know and I'll get you connected with the right person and get you the dates and all of those pieces. Some of those take place at the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute, some at APSRC offices, and then other places around the state. For the Reach components, if you want to join us for those, all you have to do is click on the QR code and register. We're averaging about 1 event a week right now. So there are lots of opportunities for that. And again, I'll give you some examples of those in a moment, but our ArkansasLeadershipAcademy.org website has registration for those events. And I'm just going to assume that I can consider all of you ALA ambassadors. And so would you please also share this link with those that you come in contact with and let them know about those services that are available. Scott mentioned that we have launched our website. It is a multifunctional website with lots of information on it, including we just launched a learning management system through the website that allows educators to watch any of those virtual pieces that they missed that are recorded and available for them on demand. One of the things that we told you we would update you on is our advisory committees and stakeholder input. Scott mentioned all of the listening tour sessions that we have completed, ways that we've gotten some stakeholder input, but our advisory committees are one of the best ways for us to hear from people in the field where we can really dig into topics. So we had proposed these 6 different advisory committees. We currently have 29 members across those committees, so representing lots of different districts and co-ops, lots of different entities as well as higher ed. The governance committee provides general oversight for ALA implementation. Project management and leadership gives us oversight to the project design, staffing and consulting needs, how we implement the work, how we coordinate, and continuous improvement. Publicity and communications is working with us on how we let people know that this work is happening and how to do that in a way that provides a consistent message. The fiscal and audit committees help us to make sure that we're using our financial resources most effectively and efficiently. And then our evaluation committee is providing us recommendations for continuous improvement. We're also providing regular updates to lots of our different stakeholder groups through conferences and one-on-one meetings, as Scott mentioned. And then we seek feedback from every participant after every one of our sessions. Our outside evaluator is giving us information about what the participants themselves are saying, about what their needs are and how we can best move forward. So now I'm going to dig into some of the specifics. So just give you an update on what we have done since August 25th. We've had more than 200 people log in to a live reach session. We've had several of those sessions since August 25th. That represents 140 unique participants. So I love that 140 different people have logged in and that 60 of them have found it valuable enough to come back for a second or third or fourth of our sessions. Our registration numbers are even higher. Just for Reach alone, we've had 460 people register for one of our events, which to me is incredibly encouraging. One of the challenges we know all educators face is what happens on the day-to-day. They have the intention of participating in professional learning opportunities, but life happens and they aren't able to participate, which is why we have the on-demand option for them afterward that they can watch. Our first series, an ALA Foundations series, provided background information from national experts as well as local Arkansas leaders and our staff on our big 3 foundational areas: collaborative leadership, collective efficacy, and cultural competence. Specifically, we dug into what the evidence says about classroom instructional practices that lead toward educator collective efficacy. And again, these are now available for viewing later. At our very first session, this is just an example of the kinds of feedback we get from participants. We saw 90% on quality, relevance, and usefulness from the participants. That the work was high quality, it was relevant to what they are doing on a daily basis, and useful for changes in their local school practices. We also asked them about improvements in knowledge. What did you know about this concept before you came to us, and what did you learn while you were with us? How much do you know afterward? It's encouraging to me that 71% in this very first event learned, partly because this was really foundational, but 71% of the participants said that they learned something that they didn't know before. And so we believe that as we continue to provide these opportunities in short pieces, bite-sized learning, that we'll continue to see educators grow. One of the things that I'm most excited about this year is our long format series on cultural competence. Dr. Dominique Smith, who is a national expert author on the topic, is leading 12 sessions this year on how to ensure equity in the classroom through policy, practice, and classroom instructional activities. So he's identified 6 topics. Each of those topics, he does a 1-hour presentation with discussion built in, and then a 1-hour just discussion opportunity. So educators who listen to join in for the first session on the content can then come back and ask deep questions and talk about what worked and what didn't work as they tried things, or they went back and shared with other leaders, and these are the pushback they got or questions that they received. So these 12 sessions are happening on select Fridays. We started on October 1st and we'll go through April. The content sessions are recorded so that educators can watch those before the discussion time if they aren't able to join us live. The discussion sessions we're not recording. We want to make sure that we provide ample opportunity for people to feel comfortable in sharing their challenges that they're facing. The center point of our REACH work is a virtual community of practice. In the virtual community of practice, which we call Spark, we invite educators to join us for an hour every other Wednesday. First and third Wednesdays, which is not quite every other Wednesday, first and third Wednesdays of each month, to hear from local leaders about a best practice in leadership, and then to dig into a problem of practice, a challenge, a case that has actually happened, and how would you handle the situation if you were in their shoes. Our first session, Dondi, who you'll hear from in just a moment, was our presenter on reconnecting with your why. Why are you in leadership? This coming Wednesday, we're going to be hearing from Liz Massey on social media in schools and some of the challenges that schools are facing right now with social media. So the benefit of this community of practice being frequent is that we can deal with issues when they are current. So again, we would love for you to join us if that's something of interest to you, but we're really trying to build up a group of people who say, twice a month I can learn from other leaders. One of the benefits of this being a virtual opportunity is that a lot of our rural districts don't have another educator, another leader to bounce ideas off of. And so to be able to connect on a regular basis and build up that trust system with a community of practice allows them to then say, okay, here's my challenge. Can I bring it next time and get feedback from others in the community? I am going to go ahead and turn things over to Dondi to talk a little bit about the Master Principal Program. And after her, Ken's going to share a couple of the programs he's involved in, and then I'll be back with you in a few moments.
Hello. Why leadership? Why me? I ask myself that quite often. And so, yeah, I was honored to do the first Spark session. I am Dondi Freisinger. This is my 33rd year in education. I'm getting kind of old. 23 of those years have been spent in administration. And my why has always been, I wanted to have that influence and impact on kids and in my classroom. And that's where I started off. I taught upper elementary for quite some time. And then I was given the opportunity to move into administration. I thought, why? I'm loving what I'm doing with my kids. But then I realized I had that power to influence a bunch of teachers in my building, and then the parents and the students, 500 students instead of just 28. And then I was given this opportunity to be the director of the Master Principal Program. And then I think, wow, how far-reaching is that educational excellence that we're striving for across our state. So it's a huge responsibility that I feel, but it's exciting at the same time. This is my 33rd year. I did go through the Master Principal Program in 2008 through 2010. In 2011, I did designate and go through that process, so I have that background to carry forward with me. And in 2014, I was Arkansas Principal of the Year. And all of that is not about a Dondi thing. It was all about so much of what I learned through the Master Principal Program that I was able to bring back to my building and grow leaders within my building and the teachers, and even student leadership. It's huge. It's a big part of it. So I'm excited to be a part of this program, and there we go. So this is our first phase. We did meet in September at Winthrop Institute. We were there for the 21st through the 23rd. All 3 phases were there and a part of this. And so this is a picture of our phase 1 cohort, that we will have total responsibility for. As you know, we already have phase 2 and phase 3 that are in the pipeline, trying to do the best we can to keep their learning moving forward. But I'm excited about this group and the possibility of creating thinkers and problem solvers and people who really believe in the power of collective efficacy. You probably know Hattie's work, and that's one of the highest effect size that you can have is collective efficacy. And so they really are a neat group. All 3 phases are, and they're a great group to work through. So yes, we were at the mountain. Peter DeWitt joined us. He is an expert author and educator, and he spent the whole time with us there helping to educate and focused on collaborative leadership as well as instructional leadership and collective efficacy. So he did a great job for us. He's also going to come back and do some refinement and some processing with us on some of the assignments and the work that people took back to their building following that professional development. Had a great time there. And this is a little bit about what we did. So we're building it. That Field of Dreams, we build it, and hopefully they will come, and we want to be able to bring in more Arkansas educators, principals from throughout the state. It's something that we're really looking at. One of the activities I had them do was put a pin for their phase, a different color, on the map of Arkansas to see exactly where we are located, and we definitely have some pockets that we need to try to reach into to pull into our program. We focused on personal mission, vision, and core beliefs. Many times schools focus on their own school, but they don't get to their personal, and you got to understand your why. And one of the messages that I really want to communicate through the Master Principal program, the designation is a wonderful thing to achieve, but the learning that goes on in phases 1, 2, and 3, that's what really makes an impact on education in Arkansas for our kids, and that's what really brings up the leadership level. So really focusing on that. If you don't get to designation, well, if you've gone through all 3 phases and brought that back to your building, you've had an impact, a positive impact on students in our state. And so we also focused on them all establishing their why and why they were there, as well as, like we said, collaborative leadership, instructional leadership, and collective efficacy. Upcoming, we have Melody Morgan, which many of you may know. She worked for the State Department. She's such a data expert and a wonderful colleague that I get to work next to. She's going to be working with them on data analysis. Dr. Jim Goodnight is going to be working with them on better conversations and communication. We also have Andrew Easton, who's going to be doing some work with the Master Principals on personalization of learning, and I'm really looking forward to that. I have worked with him in the past. So that will be a great PD for them. We also have some training on reflective feedback, which also has a high Hattie effect size. And we have Solution Tree coming in that will be doing some work with high reliability schools. And as you know, that encompasses professional learning communities. So that's all I have for you from the Master Principal program side of it.
Good afternoon. I'm Ken Rich. I'm the Director of Finance Services at APSRC, but I'm also one of the learning leaders for the Arkansas Leadership Academy. And it's my 33rd year in education. I've served as a school administrator, and I can't tell you how much fun it is for me to be a part of this work, because I know that positive leadership matters, and it makes a difference for teachers, it makes a difference for students, it makes a difference for communities. So I'm glad to be a part of that. The 2 areas that I'm working with are the Executive Leader Empowerment Group. And this is our first cohort, 22 superintendents, assistant superintendents, and co-op directors. We met with the Master Principal Group last month. We had one session together with them with Dr. Peter DeWitt on collaborative leadership. And he also came and met with our group separately on how to coach up collaborative leadership in your school, how to be the person that models that and leads that in your district. We also had, thankful to have Secretary Key, Deputy Commissioner Ivy Pfeffer stop by. They were most intrigued by Dr. Pfeffer's comments with regard to problems of practice that we were talking about, and that was getting quality teachers in the classroom and recruiting people to be good teachers. So they really enjoyed that session. We also had a panel of legislators that met with our team, I think 6 legislators, sit down and talked intimately with our group about educational issues and what we can do going forward. They really enjoyed that. And we had 4 superintendents from across the state that have done really good work that came in and shared their core educational beliefs and the things they've done to have success in their districts. And we're going to try to keep those type of things going in every session. But we're also going to do things a little unconventional, because I'm going to bring in some business leaders that have led organizations. They're not school leaders, but they know what good leadership is. See some different ideas, possibly some military leaders as well. I have a former person that I've worked with a lot in Texas, Dr. Bob Thompson, and I want to have him in for some work as well. He's done some leadership work here in Arkansas in the past. Some real common sense approach to leadership. I think that'll be good as well. So you can see our focus during the first session was supporting our leaders, collaborative leadership, collective efficacy. We'll move on to some cultural competence in our next session. Problems of practice will always be a part of what we do in every session. And we want to make sure everybody understands their leadership style. You know, what strengths do I have? I work with Dr. Jake Long at Mountain Home a lot, and they have a strengths program where they know their 5 strengths. They know their areas of weakness and strengths. I think it's important for leaders. So we have 3 sessions. We had our one in September. We'll come back in February and April, and these are about a day and a half event. I call them a day and a half, but that one day is it's a bear. We go from morning to evening. So really proud of this group. Enjoy being a part of it. A lot of good work. Our second area is our policy leader empowerment. These are our school board members. So school board members have never been a part of the Arkansas Leadership Academy in the past. So I'm excited about this. We actually launched it last night. APSRC does school board training for over 1,000 school board members every year. So in our 13 session 2, we have 2 sessions a year. We have round 1 3-hour session and round 2 3-hour session. So in our 13 second sessions, we're going to have a session from Dr. White. I started last night with regards to what can school board members do, what's their role in developing and supporting their instructional leaders in their school. Also their role in supporting improvement practices in their school. So this is our first kickoff event last night. Got some positive feedback from the group that was there last night. We worked with the North Central and DeQueen Mena co-ops last night via a Zoom session and got some good feedback from them. So we hope to make that a part of our board training as we go on, but also have some opportunities for board members to come in and be a part of our executive leader group, working closely with superintendents as well. So really proud of the work that's been done so far. We're just getting started, and we have a lot of good work coming, but I'm glad to be a part of it, and I'm going to turn it back over to Carrie.
So we have 3 more cohort-based programs that are about to launch. One of those launches on November 3rd, our school team empowerment. As the name implies, this is for teams of leaders. That's classroom teachers, building level administrators, and perhaps district level administrators who support that work in schools. The content focus for this group is about collective efficacy. How do we strengthen instructional leadership teams? We are launching with November 3rd with a virtual event that we're going to open up to anyone in the state, even if they're not applying to be part of the cohort. And then the cohort themselves will meet in January, February, and March in face-to-face engagements. They'll also receive personalized coaching virtually between those sessions. So we are accepting applications right now. If anyone is still listening to the board meeting, we are accepting applications. We would love for your school to join us in school team empowerment. Shortly thereafter, we will be launching instructional leader empowerment. In the past, the ALA had very unique programs for principals, assistant principals, deans, different roles. We are offering this as a combined effort for those who have similar roles, and will provide opportunities for them to work with those who are role alike and learn from those who are role alike, but also to spend time learning from those who have a similar but slightly distinct role. And so we're putting that together in instructional leader. That will launch on November 30th. It's also face-to-face, November, January, and February, and we are currently accepting applications for those positions. So again, this is for building level instructional leaders or district leaders who directly support instruction in a variety of ways. And then set to launch in early spring is our Teacher Leader Program. Our Teacher Leader Program is aligned with DESE's Career Continuum. So those who complete the ALA Teacher Leader Program are eligible to receive that designation as a lead teacher professional on their license. And we will be launching that in the spring with a content focus on collaborating, leading, understanding, learning, analyzing, reflecting, and advocating for the profession. So that's all based on the teacher leader model standards that the state has. We will be advertising our acceptance of those applications very soon, hopefully in the next week or two. So as I come to a conclusion, this map represents the districts in green and the co-ops and charter schools with the red dots that have already sent representatives to one of our engagements, either virtually or face-to-face. As Scott mentioned, that's 119 educational entities so far, which we believe is a great start for 6 weeks' time. But we want to see all of the white spaces filled in. And so as we are looking toward those new cohort applications and the upcoming REACH events, we are looking to increase that access across the state. Finally, I leave you with contact information because we would love to hear from you. I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in participating, feel free to reach out to me. You can do that using this email address or my personal, either way. And what I don't have on the slide is we would also like to invite you to follow us on Twitter, Arkansas Leadership Academy, no spaces. If you search for Arkansas Leadership Academy with no spaces, you will find us on Twitter. Our actual Twitter handle is @ArkansasLeader1, because, Arkansas Leader was already taken. But we would love for you to follow us on Twitter and, again, share what is happening at the Academy with those whom you know will benefit from those leadership opportunities. And with that, if you have questions, we're more than willing.
Awesome, thank you. Down to my left, questions, Ms. McPetridge? Questions over here? Ms. Post? Ms. Newton? And Mr. Sutton? I can sign y'all. Okay, I appreciate the thoroughness of all the information. This is a lot that y'all are doing. And so it's great to get an update on each component of it, and as we can think about how we can support y'all in getting more applicants and getting more and more people involved.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, do we know if we have any public comments signed up? We have attorneys in here. I don't think we do.
I don't think it's a public comment. I think y'all may have received an email from a district patron concerning, and it was a question about censorship. Does that ring a bell? I mean, I just saw it come through. It looked like it maybe was, y'all got it earlier this week. It went to your ADE email addresses. Just if you get to that and you wonder, I've asked legal to take a look at it. We don't have any update at this point on that topic.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add? Well, thank y'all for being here today and for sticking with us. I think we've had some good conversations, and I've certainly learned a lot of different things this morning. With that, we will adjourn. Do we need a motion?
Thank you, Dr. for cheering. You did an excellent job, and I appreciate you filling in.
I'll be glad to see you back here next month. No, I'm happy to. Hope you all have a good weekend, Ms. Newton. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's over.